It all begins in another world. The main character thinks, perhaps, once in a new world, everyone would want to fully enjoy their second life. He sits in front of the computer and watches the stream of comments appearing on the screen. The young man admits that he wouldn't advise anyone to stream in another world. The hero sits in front of a computer with a headband on, and a microphone stands on the table next to him. Some time passed. Night had already fallen in the yard, and the hero finally fell asleep peacefully in his room. The room was simple, but at the same time cozy. There was nothing superfluous to distract. There was not even any furniture here, except for the most necessary. One by one, girls appear next to the hero. Some of them look like real demons. All of them, without exception, gaze at the young man with admiration, as if enchanted. Their amorous glances alarm the hero. This is what he fears most. The story takes place in the present day, in the city of Ataraja, located in the kingdom of Logias, at the Sistal Academy. The students are standing in the hallway after class. The teacher reminds everyone to be careful on the way home. The protagonist heads home. The young man has returned home. His home is a small room in a dormitory. The room contains only a small bed and a desk at which our hero is used to working and studying. The hero takes off his uniform and carefully lays it out. It is a white school uniform, not very expensive looking, but sewn really nicely and neatly. The young man bandages his head. He is preparing for something important. Taking a deep breath, the hero is about to begin. The hero solemnly announces that it's time to begin. In front of him on the table are a monitor, a keyboard, and a huge microphone. A mysterious logo appears on the screen and an inscription that says, "Only audio is currently being broadcast." A young man greets his listeners and introduces himself. His name is Haishin. He asks how everyone is doing. Immediately, numerous comments from the audience begin to appear. They are instantly translated into understandable language, which is very convenient for communication. Haishin suggests a little chat and discuss the concerns of the listeners. The first to send a message is a young man named Actor. He is a B-rank adventurer. The hero reads his words carefully. Axio explains that a new recruit who recently joined their team has proven to be of no use at all. He can only locate enemies, maintain weapons, and use auxiliary magic. Therefore, Actio's leader has decided to expel him from the group. The actor arrogantly stated that the boy was very worried about being kicked out. Haishin responded by ironically asking if the actor had gone crazy. The protagonist clearly did not share the actor's opinion, and became even angrier after rereading the story. Haishin explains that being able to spot enemies will help you avoid encounters with monsters, and taking care of your weapons will save you money. The hero asks if that's not enough to be useful in a team of adventurers. Haishin chides Octo for his disrespect for people, and wonders if he thinks he's better than that guy. Everyone around him agrees with Haishin. They say Octo is a bad commander, but that guy could be useful because he really knows his stuff. Meanwhile, Actos listens to Haishin's broadcast. The streamer complains that they are short of people due to the lack of auxiliary magic. The hero is clearly upset by this. Someone holds the phone in their hands, not believing what they heard, but listens attentively further. Haishin, not holding back his emotions, rudely declares, if someone considers themselves a god or a king, then the hero has only one piece of advice for them. He almost shouts at the ungrateful and impudent actor, trying to get his point across. The hero firmly declares, if the commander is unable to soberly assess the situation, he should resign. In response, Haishin warns that once Acton destroys the entire squad, nothing can be changed. Haishin orders Acto to kneel before the guy and beg him to return to the team. Some commentators support the streamer, but others think it's too much. Meanwhile, the hero already has 10,000 listeners. The young man takes a sip of water and wonders if he managed to get his point across. Despite the fact that the listener is quite rude, the hero sincerely wishes him a long life and moves on to the next topic. The next participant says that he is the son of a noble nobleman and already has a bride. Haishin sighs thoughtfully and imagines this girl. The man continues to say that he recently fell in love with a beautiful exchange student and is going to leave his fiancée. In response, Keshjin angrily tells him to die and give her the girl. At that moment, the stranger was holding a phone in his hand and listening intently to the angry words of the streamer, who was outraged by his message. Voices could be clearly heard from the small device. The streamer was loudly complaining about that mysterious aristocrat, telling how he had supposedly given him his own girlfriend. Haishin asks the young man if he has thought about his family. The hero replies that an aristocrat's wedding is a serious event that should not be taken lightly. Everyone who listens to him supports him and takes his side. Haishin continued his conversation, advising the stranger to first try to establish a trusting relationship with his fiancée. and not to draw conclusions about people based solely on their appearance. One of the commentators admits that he doesn't fully understand the whole situation. Another jokes that maybe Keshin is just jealous of that guy, and the streamer advised the stranger to try to get to know the girl better. At this moment, Hishin imagines a beautiful girl who gently asks him to hold her hand. The young man dreams of meeting his beloved, and this picture in his imagination brings tears to his eyes. The hero ends the broadcast and says goodbye to the audience, promising to return to them tomorrow. The young man sighs wearily and leans back in his chair. He slowly removes the bandage from his head. Haitian recalls the streamers he admired in his past life. He never thought he would ever be one of them. But now he really likes it. He enjoys it. The hero carefully twists the bandage on his arm, humming something under his breath. Geishin is his new life in this world. On the table behind him is a large monitor, and next to it is a microphone. All the necessary equipment for streaming is ready to work. The next day at the academy, the teacher explains to the students that magic is imagination, and to prove his point, he demonstrates it visually. A light flashes from the tip of his finger, resembling a small flame, which softly illuminates his face, creating an amazing spectacle. Haitian believes he was born here for the second time and has been living in this world for some time. Meanwhile, the teacher explains something to the other students, and they all listen attentively to their mentor. At first, the hero was delighted when he learned that magic exists in this world, but over time, it became familiar to him. The young man recalls with a smile how he was just starting to master magic. Now magic is a familiar thing in his life, and he understands why it happened. For the hero, magic has long ceased to be something amazing, because now he has an inexhaustible supply of mana. Inside him lies a huge, almost limitless power, which he feels every day. Kanata, the hero's real name, quickly realized that with such power, it was impossible to dream of an ordinary life. He only had to hit him a little, and the ground under his feet would immediately begin to crumble. Therefore, the hero could never show his full strength to the fullest. The hero knows that only wealthy aristocrats or very talented commoners can pass the mage rank test. Kanana deliberately restrained his true power and received an S rank. This level is enough for him to not attract unnecessary attention from others. Kanata felt someone approaching him from behind. The young man already knew who it could be, but he still turned around a little to make sure who was approaching him. One of the classmates tells the hero to go home, because he is an ordinary person, not from their circle. His friend adds that Kanata doesn't even have a last name, so he shouldn't have appeared here at all. It is immediately clear that his classmates are not at all happy about his presence. Kanata knows well that aristocrats do not treat commoners very favorably. Although the school tries to reduce this prejudice, a certain discrimination still persists. Each student perceives this situation in his own way and reacts to it differently. The young man leans forward a little, remembering that he must behave politely with the aristocrats at the academy. Although they are all the same age, the hero does not want to do so at all. However, he has no other choice. The hero folds his hands, smiles, and advises his two classmates to take this matter to their teachers, because he himself, unfortunately, cannot help them. This attitude is very annoying to young people. A young student with his hair up high grabs Kanata by the collar of his shirt. At that moment, the teacher notices their argument and wonders what is going on. He wants to stop the conflict before it even flares up. The teacher continues to reprimand the young people, advising them to channel their irrepressible energy elsewhere because they really do have plenty of it. And then suddenly a girl enters the classroom, hastily apologizing for being late. Everyone immediately pays attention to her. The girl was in a hurry to class and was running very fast. Out of breath, she leaned forward a little and rested her hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. A thin stream of sweat ran down her cheeks, and she herself eagerly caught the air. The teacher recognizes the girl who is late. Her name is Maria Ataraja. Maria has long, beautiful blonde hair and an attractive figure. She looks around awkwardly at everyone present. Maria tries to straighten her disheveled hair. The teacher informs that Maria is at home now. Maybe something is bothering her, so he is not going to scold her. The girl bows gratefully to the teacher. The man certainly does not want to cause trouble for the princess. A man announces to the students that it is time for a demonstration. Suddenly, a young man with blonde hair steps out of the crowd. He confidently walks straight towards the teacher. The young man asks to be allowed to show him everything himself. He looks confident. His attractive features only emphasize his determination. Behind him, Kanata watches the events, not believing her eyes. The young man looks at the hero with disdain and says that, after all, it is only an S rank. Kanata looks at him with an indifferent look, not answering anything. 3 stars shine on the young man's uniform. a sign that his rank is SSS. The young man gathers power at the tip of his finger. He asks the teacher if it would be enough to simply hit the target with weak magic. The teacher replies that he has protected everything with powerful reflecting magic, so there is no need to hold back at all. The hero aimed into the distance and fired a small magic ball straight at the target. The magic hit, and a loud bang was heard all around. Smoke rose from the young man's finger. The young man hits the arrow right in the center of the target. The teacher notes that one successful shot is not enough to prove his skill. A thin wisp of smoke rises from the middle of the target, and in the very center there is a dark mark from the impact. The teacher looks over the list of students and asks Kanata to approach the target. The hero calmly agrees and prepares for a demonstration. At this moment, the rest of the students look at him disdainfully, whisper among themselves and point their fingers at him. Kanata gathers a small ball of magic on the tip of his finger. Behind him stand his rude classmates, a haughty young man, and Maria. Everyone is impatiently waiting for the hero to make his shot, but no one even expects anything special from him. The young man effortlessly releases a small charge, and the magic flies rapidly towards the target. However, the charge does not hit exactly in the very center. A small charge of magic shatters the target into small pieces and causes a powerful explosion. The blast wave causes Kanata's clothes to fly behind her. The fence in front of the target flies in different directions. The young man looks at the powerful explosion and realizes that he overdid it a bit. Maria watches everything with delight, while her arrogant classmates cannot believe their eyes. A pleased teacher holds a handful of ashes in his hands, showing that nothing remains of the target. A man nearby notes that it was a magnificent sight. But right now, the teacher says, is the time to move on to practice. After such a demonstration, the rest of the students have lost all desire to do anything, and they only chuckle quietly. One of the classmates with his hair up high got angry and declared that an ordinary person was not capable of such a thing. He was shaking with anger, and Kanata calmly walked past. The hero paid no attention to either the rude words or the envious reaction. A classmate with a high-up hairstyle and his friend decide that Kanata was just cheating during the demonstration. Enraged by the hero's strength and skills, the boys are already thinking about using battle magic against him. Suddenly, Maria appears behind the boys and girls. She asks her classmates in surprise what they are doing here. Maria's presence clearly makes everyone nervous. The young people are confused and fidgeting. It seems that the girl is not at all thrilled with their plans. The two aristocrats look around and see Maria in front of them. Her sudden appearance frightens the young people. The girl looks at them threateningly. They lower their eyes and remain silent in confusion, not knowing what to say. Maria slowly approaches the tree. The girl reaches the trunk and touches it with her hand. She addresses her classmates, urging them not to think about who is a commoner and who is an aristocrat. Maria taps her finger on the trunk and reminds them that they have all gathered here for a reason. With just one light touch of her finger, Maria pierced the tree through. Turning to her classmates, she sternly told them to curb their pride and stop throwing insults. The frightened young men bowed low to Mary and promised not to behave like that again. Pleased with their answer, the girl calmly walked away. Some of her classmates looked at the princess with admiration. At that moment, Kanata heard a mysterious noise and looked around. Behind the hero stood Maria. The girl enthusiastically said that his magic was simply incredible. The young man thanked Maria for such words. The hero looks intently at the girl in front of him. He knows very well that this is Madame Maria, a person of royal blood. The girl is the third princess. Maria confidently and calmly meets the young man's gaze. Kanata feels the gazes of all his classmates on him because he is talking to Mrs. Maria herself. The hero sighs mentally, because it seems that the envious aristocrats are about to pierce him with their numerous glances. With her head slightly lowered, Maria admits that she is very tired of these constant conflicts. Due to the difference in status, she speaks seriously without joking. Maria wants to finally be heard and her position understood. Lady Maria quietly addresses the young man, asking him to listen carefully to the princess's words. The girl says this seriously, while trying to make sure that only he hears her words, as if she does not want anyone else to know about her request. Confused, Kanata didn't hear the girl's words and asked her what she had just said. Maria was about to leave, so she turned around and awkwardly replied that she hadn't said anything. The girl looked a little confused. Looking back, the girl smiles coquettishly and tells the young man, even if his classmates annoy him, he shouldn't bother them again. Maria hopes that Kanata will understand her. Kanata, completely oblivious, holds his head and decides to ignore his rude classmates. At that moment, an arrogant classmate hiding behind a tree watches the hero with envy. It's already evening, and Kanata goes live again, reincarnating as Highshine. The hero addresses his viewers, asking how they are doing at work and school. At this moment, Haishin is truly happy. He likes what he does. Looking at the monitor screen and watching the rapidly changing comments, Haishin recalls that at first he didn't even have a computer. He was given a device after joining. At first it was just a work terminal. Kanata recalls how he once did research and modified this terminal to look like a computer he was familiar with from a previous life. I probably wouldn't have known that communication through terminals has been around for a long time. However, for most people, there is still no appropriate technology or entertainment. But using his inexhaustible power, the young man managed to create something like an internet platform on his own. In fact, he is the one who controls this entire system. The hero understands well. If someone else tried instead of him, his magic would run out instantly. Kanata told those present that today he witnessed an unpleasant scene. Aristocrats humiliated commoners again, and such disputes, unfortunately, do not disappear. The young man regrets that it is so difficult for people to live in peace. Commentators point out that differences in status will not disappear so easily, because it is thanks to them that order is maintained. Haishin observes that opinions, as always, are divided. Suddenly, a bright comment from an unknown princess appears on the screen. The other commenters react in surprise, because this person is a true fan of Haishin. Some of them see such colorful messages for the first time, but Kanata knows that colorful comments usually come with money transfers. He stares thoughtfully at the screen and, after saying the question aloud, opens more comments to see what is written there. The girl writes in her message that she is very happy to hear Haishin so candid again. She says that the money is her way of thanking him, and asks the hero to accept this gratitude. Haishin notices a money order for 10 gold coins. The hero thanks the nameless princess. Meanwhile, a young man sitting in front of the screen unties his wallet. The hero looks at the shiny gold coin and says that the girl also gave him money yesterday. Haishin guesses to himself that it is about 100,000 yen. The hero asks if the girl stole the money from her parents. The unknown girl writes that she is transferring money from her own pocket, so Hyoshian need not worry. However, there is uncertainty in her words. It seems that she wants to say something more, but does not dare. The nameless princess writes that if Haishin wants to experience what it's like to have a girlfriend, she will be happy to help him with this. The hero, upon hearing such an offer, was genuinely surprised. Haishin looks at the screen and thinks that he really doesn't want to meet anyone because he'll be exposed quickly. The young man doesn't want anyone to find out about him. The girl is holding a terminal that looks like a phone. She hears Gaishin thank her and add that if the opportunity arises, he wouldn't mind. Maria, comfortably settled on a luxurious bed, writes back that she really hopes it will come true. She signs herself with a pseudonym, Nameless Princess. Meanwhile, the sounds of the broadcast, which is still being conducted by Haishin, reach her. Maria reads the next message and mentally admires the hero. She thinks he is simply incredible. The girl looks at her terminal with loving eyes. Hearing Haishin's voice, she hugs the small device tightly to her chest, her face instantly blushing. Confused and in love, Maria tosses and turns on the bed, unable to find a place for herself. She places the terminal next to her, lies down next to it, and suddenly Haishin's voice comes from the small device. The girl freezes, listening. Maria approaches the terminal on the bed. She leans in so close that her face is right next to the small screen. The girl runs her hand gently over the device and says thoughtfully that Haishin is truly an extraordinary person. Lying in bed, Maria recalls how Haishin burst into Thracia like a comet. She believes that thanks to his charisma and influence, he quickly became a force to be reckoned with. For the listeners, Gaishin became something of a higher power. His words truly saved lives, and for many he showed the right path. People listened to him attentively and shared his thoughts. Maria presses the terminal to her cheek. The girl enthusiastically says that the streamer is not afraid to express his opinion and is always ready to take responsibility. He is very confident in himself. Maria freezes for a moment and looks intently at the terminal screen. Maria, excited, licks the screen, enthusiastically declaring that Haishin's voice is penetrating her head. The girl runs her hand over her neck, feeling this unusual excitement. Maria says that the streamer's voice, like a wave, envelops her from head to toe, filling every corner of her body. The girl sighs weakly. She notices that her own voice now sounds completely different. Maria listens with delight to Hyoshin's voice and begs him not to stop. She confesses that she is ready to give herself to him completely. Her whole body shakes with emotion, and she makes strange sounds. Miserable because of love, Maria raises her head and impatiently says that she wants to live only for the sake of the shining brilliance. Her gaze becomes strange and wild, and in her thoughts there remains only one dream: to shine brighter than all. In this world, streamer Haishin has a bunch of rabid female fans. They race to tune into his broadcasts late at night, listening intently to his every word as if it were the most important thing in the world to them. In the future, these frightening feelings will only intensify. Haishin seems to be chosen by various creatures, demonic women, princesses, and even saints. They all dream of meeting him in order to win this young man for themselves. Without hesitation, Kanata confessed that he wanted to meet someone. This became a real sensation among his rabid female fans. Each of them dreamed of meeting him in person. Now each of them organized their own hunt to meet Kanata. At that moment, the boy had no idea what his reckless words and loud statement would lead to. Kanata is a hero who was reborn and found himself in another world. Here he possesses incredible magical power, but despite this he faces prejudice from his classmates. However, there is a secret in this world. Under the pseudonym Haishin, he has become the only and incredibly popular streamer who is adored by everyone. The hero tells that the unknown girl sent him 10 gold coins again. Kanata is sincerely grateful to her. Thanks to his actions, something new began to happen in this world. The possessed Princess Maria claims that she can keep the streamer alive. Meanwhile, Kanata's activities have grown into a real cult. Now girls have gathered around him, literally losing their heads with admiration. Sometime later, on a clear and warm day, after finishing his lessons, the hero heads home. Kanata thinks that today he wants to walk along a path where there are fewer people. His classmates couldn't believe that an ordinary boy could set off such an explosion. They decided that he was just lucky. Some even suspected that the hero had planted the explosives himself. After this incident, they began to tease and bully him even more. On his way home, Kanata thinks that he can always relax with streams. But suddenly he hears a loud scream from around the corner of the building. Around the corner, one of her classmates, a rich and arrogant guy, suddenly turns to Maria, opening up to her for the first time. He desperately asks her to accept his feelings. The girl stands at a loss, not knowing how to react to such a confession. Maria, not wanting to offend her classmate, sincerely apologizes to him and gently explains that she cannot reciprocate his feelings. Kanata recognizes the girl and her classmate. The hero realizes that he is not comfortable coming out of hiding right now. Meanwhile, his classmate asks Maria if she has found a fiancé yet. The girl denies his assumption and confidently declares that she has the right to choose whom to love. Maria adds that she has already found someone to whom she wants to give her all, to show her true essence. The young man does not believe her words and doubts Maria's sincerity. The saddened young man, holding back tears, runs away from Maria, wishing her and her chosen man happiness in the future. The girl remains on the sidelines, confused and not understanding what happened. Kanata furtively glanced at Maria. The hero thought that he really liked this girl. Maria was a graceful beauty with a beautiful figure and large, expressive eyes. The young man leans against the wall, thinking that the one who can win over a girl like Maria is truly lucky. The protagonist realizes that he needs to take a different path and is about to leave. Suddenly, Maria speaks up and points out that eavesdropping is not good. The girl said that she immediately noticed Kanata when he was standing around the corner. The hero apologized in fright and admitted that he was just returning home, but did not dare to pass by. Maria looked at him flirtatiously, smiling with interest. Maria smiled sweetly and said that she was just joking. Kanata sighed with relief and thanked the girl for her understanding. The hero said goodbye to her and left, and Maria was left alone, not expecting such a turn of events. The girl crossed her arms and lightly touched her face. Maria wondered if she heard a familiar Canadian pronunciation. She couldn't tell if it was her imagination or if something like that had really happened. A little time passed, evening came, and the lights of the lanterns lit up on the buildings one after another. Kanata began his new stream. With excitement in his voice, he greeted his viewers and sincerely apologized for making them wait a little. Meanwhile, in her room, Maria, who was frantically waiting for the stream to start, was literally overcome with joy. The girl rolls on the floor, screaming in delight how much she loves Hyoshin and how pleasant his voices are to her. A moment ago she was a real lady, elegant and reserved, but now everything has changed. Suddenly, the sound of money being transferred during the broadcast reaches her ears. During the stream, Hyoshin was surprised when he saw how much money he had been given. The hero was delighted and sincerely thanked him, but emphasized that the most important thing was for the listener to take care of himself first. Maria was very interested in this answer. The girl is curious to know who decided to support Haishin. Maria looks at the terminal screen with a slight smile. A message appears on the display. The listener can really afford to transfer such a large amount of money. Gaishin continues the broadcast and tells the listeners that this is his first letter. Maria runs briskly to the terminal and loudly shouts to the unfamiliar listener not to make a fool of himself. Streamer reads the letter. The stranger writes that among humans it is believed that demons must be destroyed. Haitian thought about it. The young man says that he doesn't understand people who talk like that about the demon race. Haitian asks why everyone can't live in peace. The hero is sure that this confrontation only harms both sides. Haitian admits that he has never seen demons with his own eyes, but he is sure that there are definitely good ones among them. He believes that among demons there will also be those who simply want peace and a peaceful life, just like among people. The listeners did not expect such words, and it truly amazes them. The young streamer says that he has heard about the cruelty of demons. However, the hero replies that there are plenty of evil people among humans. Passers-by on the street, upon hearing these words, are genuinely surprised. Haitian turns to the audience and asks if they have heard anything about exploitation and discrimination. Maria thoughtfully repeats his words. She recalls a recent trip she took in a luxurious carriage. Maria was riding in a luxurious carriage, enjoying the ride. Suddenly, the girl asked Sebos to stop. She quickly got out of the carriage and, without saying a word, set off in an unfamiliar direction. Her subordinate turned to the lady in surprise, trying to understand what was happening. Maria found herself in a strange place where she could buy workers. People were sitting in cages and begging not to be punished or beaten. One of the women turned to Maria and told her not to pretend she understood everything they had been through. The girl turns to her subordinate and asks what this place is. Sebos explains that it is like a wound in the heart of the workforce, adding that she read about tacos in a textbook. The girl wonders why this place still exists. Sebos suggests they move to another location. Maria sits sad under a large tree. With tears in her eyes, she turns to Sebos, asking if it is possible to stop all this. The girl wipes a tear from her cheek. Seba tries to explain to her that changing the law is not that easy. The subordinate adds that such laws are beneficial to some aristocrats and officials because they allow them to get cheap labor. Depressed, Maria asks what she should do next. Seba just shrugs, admitting that he doesn't know the answer himself. The man hands her the terminal and says that he heard about a person who can help find the right path. Maria picks up the terminal. She has heard something about this person, but she still has doubts. The girl decides to try, although she is not sure that anyone can really help her in this situation. She begins to write a letter to Haitian. The streamer unfolds a letter from a mysterious princess who declares her intention to destroy the labor market. Haitian is stunned. He had no idea such a thing existed. He thinks that depriving people of their freedom is terrible, and the commentators are only surprised at his naivety. Haitian admits that he is not the kind of person who can change the laws, but if the girl is really a princess, why doesn't she make the first move herself? The hero understands how difficult it is to fight against the old rules. The streamer is sure that the girl is capable of saving more than one life. People who are offended hope for changes that will bring them a better future. The hero doubts whether the real listener is the princess. Maria gives the order to prepare the carriage. The girl confidently gets up from the ground and announces to Sabusa that they will now go to her father, because he is the king. The subordinate does not take her words seriously, not believing her. After this, Mary took the situation under her personal control. She immediately abolished the use of forced labor and imposed a strict ban on it. The suffering of the people finally ended. The girl says that's why she trusts Mr. Haitian. Maria is sure. The streamer is showing her the right path. The girl is convinced that discrimination must be fought. So at the academy where she studies, she has become a mediator between commoners and aristocrats. Maria looks hopefully into the dark sky. Suddenly, the girl hears a beep on her terminal. She opens the comments and sees girls arguing among themselves about who will be lucky enough to go on a date with Haitian. An angry Maria can't believe that anyone would even consider themselves worthy of going on a date with Haitian. She scornfully remarks that one should know one's place. The girl confidently writes from her account that she is the best fit for Haitian. Maria, without hesitation, transfers a huge amount of money to the streamer. Suddenly, the streamer asks everyone to stop behaving like this. The young man says that he appreciates the support of his viewers, but he doesn't like those who start fights online. Maria is stunned by his words. Blinded by her obsession with Haitian, Maria tearfully convinces herself that the streamer doesn't care. She cries a lot, sincerely believing that the hero not only doesn't pay attention to her, but outright hates her. Haitian says that if everyone realizes their mistake, then he forgives everyone. Maria, unable to contain her joy, admits that she has understood everything. She admits that she is still inexperienced, but promises to do her best. The young man thoughtfully repeats the words about being able to find a common language with demons. The hero thinks that this is a really good idea. Haitian wonders what the demon lord looks like. The streamer asks the audience if any of them have seen him with their own eyes. But after these words, everyone present suddenly looks at their screens in fear. And then they are seized by a terrible horror. An expression of genuine surprise appears on their faces. Each of the listeners warns the young streamer not to bring up this difficult topic for discussion. The short-sighted Haixing continues to stubbornly try to prove his point. The hero sincerely shares his aspiration. He wants to see a world where humans and demons can live together in peace. Suddenly, his attention is interrupted by a strange sound. A new notification has arrived. But Kanata notices the message. One of the listeners thinks he's an interesting young man. This listener admits that he'll try to think positively too. Kanata has no idea that he's unwittingly broaching a topic that's forbidden in this world. Events unfold a few months before Kanata's loud statement. The horned demoness admits that she is bored and does not want to kill people anymore. She suggests that everyone start over and forcibly transports them to another location using spatial displacement. The subordinate notes with admiration that the demoness used spatial movement. He explains that this magic is far superior to even SSS level and humans had no chance of resisting it. The demonologist reflects on how humans and demons have been fighting each other for centuries, without even trying to find a common language. She wonders what the point of all this endless hostility is. A beautiful demon with long black hair and 2 horns sat near a mighty tree. She held a terminal in her hands, and the Gaishan emblem glowed on its screen. Behind her stood a huge, dark castle looking mysterious and menacing. Demoness Shrausa appeared before her subordinates, and they remarked with admiration that she was especially strong and beautiful today. However, Shrausa did not even look back at their admiring words. She proudly walked on, ignoring them. She looks at the world, full of human echoes, and believes, one day common sense will prevail, and this senseless war will finally end. Someone calls Mrs. Shrause. The demoness turns and a short demonic girl runs up to her, telling her that the previous adventurers lost something interesting. Shrouse looks at the small screen, where she sees the name Haixin, and asks who it is. A demon with 1 horn circles in the air, making strange sounds. The demon girl explains that this device allows the adventurers to hear Hyoshin's voice. Everything the winged demon said, the girl translated for the others. The demonic girl explains that this device requires certain waves to work, which don't reach here. Shroudza thinks about it and notes that this device could be useful for gathering information. Shrusa tells the girl to try to make these waves more permeable and get her terminal. The demon, full of enthusiasm, immediately nods and, together with the flying demon, quickly runs away to carry out the order. Some time has passed, and Miss Shrauza is already sitting at the table in front of the monitor. The demonic girl approaches and asks if everything is okay with her. The demoness stood up from her chair and said that this would help her pass the time. The demon girl instantly ran away, promising to inform everyone else. Shrauza looks thoughtfully at the monitor on the table. She can hear the sounds of the stream and the host's voice. The events unfold a few days later. During a live broadcast, Haixin asks the listeners what they had for breakfast today. Shrauza almost automatically answers him while doing her work, but suddenly her gaze stops at the monitor. The demoness looks up from her work and throws her head at the ceiling in disappointment. She has already realized that there will be no answers from Gaishin to this question. Shrauza's cheeks are blazing red with embarrassment. What was supposed to be just entertainment to kill time gradually infiltrated her life and became an integral part of her daily habits. The demoness falls asleep to Gaishin's voice, fights enemies, and even eats to his stories. Shrauza wondered who Haixin was. The demonic figure realized that for his voice to be heard in any direction, a huge supply of mana was required. The demoness realizes that the streamer's magical power exceeds even her own, a discovery that makes Shrauzu even more fascinated by Gaishin. Mrs. Strauss slowly savors her tea and thinks that Hyoshin is a very unusual young man. Suddenly, she hears the streamer displeasedly admit that there is something he doesn't like. Haixin asks the audience why humans and demons are at war with each other. The hero bluntly says that this enmity is not worth the sacrifices that both sides make. Surprised by this statement, Shrauza accidentally knocks over a mug of tea. The goblet whirls in the air and suddenly falls directly onto the horns of the demonic butler. Shrauza is genuinely surprised that Gaishan is also tormented by the same question as her. What to do with the eternal confrontation between humans and demons? The young man confidently declares, "It would be great if, instead of war, the leaders of both sides sat down at the negotiating table and peacefully resolved this problem." Shrauza listens attentively to every word of the streamer, thoughtfully perceiving his thoughts. Gaishin noted that this was just his personal opinion. He wasn't imposing it on anyone. The hero was about to move on to another topic. The streamer declares that it's time to think about dinner because he's hungry. Shrouza looks at the screen in disbelief. The demoness laughed, her cheeks turning a flirtatious pink. It was in Haitian that she first saw her soulmate. Shrala sits in front of the monitor and listens intently to Gaizian's stream. The girl sends him a huge sum of money. The streamer advises the mysterious lady to take care of herself first. But she replies that his wallet is her wallet too. Overwhelmed by love, Shrausa admits that she is currently experiencing the happiest period of her life. The girl is breathing heavily. She is so overwhelmed with emotions. Now Shrausa has become a true fan of Hishin and simply cannot stop thinking about him. Kanata continues to broadcast, talking about discrimination. At this time, Shrausa hears a notification sound. The nameless princess has outpaced the demoness and transferred the money before her, which does not please the latter at all. But the demon girl returns to Mrs. Strauss and asks what happened. The demoness's face is filled with rage. At this time, Haitian does not stop his broadcast and notes, "It would be good if we could come to an understanding with the demons." As Straussa grows increasingly angry with the nameless princess, Gisian wonders what the demon lord might be like. The hero wonders if anyone present has ever seen this demon lord. Straussa hears his question and listens warily. The demon was right. Gisian is truly an unusual guy. The girl says she'll try to stay positive. The streamer asks if she's copying the demon lord's behavior, and admits that she'd like to meet her. The demon girl wonders if the girl wanted to start writing. Straussa says that it doesn't matter anymore, because she has urgent business. She asks the demon girl to help her prepare. The demon girl immediately agrees to carry out the order. Later, in a large bathroom where everything is shrouded in thick steam, Shroz takes a hot shower and thinks about Highsheet. Demonessa is lost in thought about the streamer. In her imagination, she calls him a human son and a faceless boy. Meanwhile, the girl stands in the shower under strong streams of water and hot steam envelops everything around. Shrauza finally realizes that she is the demon lord, a being capable of destroying anything she wishes. Meanwhile, the demon gently touches her shoulder with his hand. The demon woman thinks about Geishin and realizes that she is attracted to his closeness. Straussa feels awkward and embarrassed by her own thoughts. All these thoughts about her lover made the demonic girl dizzy. She decided to visit Strauss, since a lot of time had passed, and she wondered if he was okay. The demonic assistant asks if her mistress is okay. At this time, Straussa thinks about Geishin and confesses that she has strong feelings for him. The demonic girl wonders why her mistress is so happy about her ordinary daily bath. Strauza was preparing to meet Haitian. Her thoughts were filled with only one desire: to see him. She, the demon, was confused by the unknown. She did not know how to approach him. She had no idea how she would be able to see his face. Spreading her huge wings, she pondered what to do next. The demoniac dreams of grabbing Hashan and holding him tightly in her arms. In her imagination, a young man appears next to her, and this thought brings her real pleasure. Shraoza realizes that Hishin is somewhere in the human world. The demon slowly opens a spatial portal into the human world. The vortex gradually spins, creating an incredible whirlwind. Shraoza says that she is ready for anything for Hishin. The demoness decisively jumps into the dimensional portal, which immediately closes behind her. At that moment, a spatial portal opens in the castle, right behind the king. The king looks around in confusion. He does not understand at all what is happening. Strauss appears before the man, determined to deal with the situation decisively. Sometime later, at dawn, Kanata wakes up in his room. The hero looks out the window warily because he hears some noise. On the street, young people holding newspapers are lively discussing some urgent news. On the streets, people are enthusiastically discussing the demon's unexpected initiative. They have proposed making peace. A picture even appears in the local newspaper, the king and the demon lord shaking hands. In a fortress city, people on the streets are discussing that all this is the consequences of Geisian's broadcast. They are surprised that even the demon lord himself is listening to the hero. It is said that his influence is already being felt in many countries, and everyone is amazed at how extraordinary Geisian is. At this time, the young man watches passers-by from the window. Kanata has already become famous in places he never even knew existed. The hero assumes that people on the street are preparing for the holiday. While Geishin is streaming, Maria and Strauza can't tear themselves away from his voice. They listen to every word with admiration. A slight blush spreads across their faces. Later, Kanata was busy at the computer, working on some stuff. She finally finished her work. The hero announced that he had something to check tonight, and Kanata decided that now was the best time to go and get some food. There is a lot of noise on one of the city streets. People are walking under the bright sun because the weather is favorable. The warmth and cloudless sky create a wonderful atmosphere. Kaneda walks down the street, holding a baguette in his hands. The young man thinks about how nice it is to sometimes walk around the city on his day off. There are many people around. Everyone is in a hurry about their business. The young man feels that he needs to relax a little. The hero picks up a fresh, crispy baguette, imagining in his mind how delicious it is. But suddenly, the silence is broken by someone's disgruntled voice. A man shouts that some young lady has humiliated him. A huge, burly man is yelling at a little girl. He doesn't let her look away, blaming her for everything that happened. He angrily demands compensation for his ruined things, as there is a noticeable food stain on his chest. The young people standing nearby immediately begin to discuss the situation. They are sure that the man is wrong. One of the boys even claims that this man was the one who pushed the little girl. Kanata listens attentively to their conversation. The hero catches himself thinking that the situation looks suspiciously standard, and cautiously looks around the neighborhood in search of guards. Kanata does not like to interfere in such matters, but he does not want to leave an innocent girl alone either. Therefore, the hero turns to the tall man. But suddenly, Kanata comes closer and asks the man if he doesn't think he has too much space here. The hero responds by being surprised and asks if the girl ran so fast that she cracked his skull. The man notices the young man and, without letting go of the girl's shoulder, asks what he needs. At this point, Kanata tries to quickly come up with a witty answer. Kanata, unable to think of anything better, realizes that she needs her hand and tells the man that it's time to end it all. He orders the girl to be released, and at that moment his palm flashes with powerful magical energy. The young man decisively grabs the man's hand and effortlessly lifts it up. The man is stunned by the force. He can't believe how powerful Kanata is and how this is even possible. The man breaks free and runs away, muttering that he has to get to work urgently and is already late. Kanata watches him go with a disdainful look. The young man is angry because the man hasn't even apologized. He can't ask if the girl is okay. Meanwhile, the girl is surprised by something. The hero asks what happened, but the girl is silent and just pulls on her hood. A beautiful, short girl with blonde hair and large eyes appeared before the young man. She admitted that Kanata's voice reminded her of someone she knew. The main character thinks, maybe this girl is his listener. Kanata is fighting an internal battle with himself, because he really wants to open up to her and start a relationship with her. However, at the same time, he is tormented by doubts, because just because she listens to him, it doesn't mean that she likes him. The young man advises the girl to go home so she doesn't get into trouble again. The stranger just smiles and assures her that everything will be fine. Feeling a powerful force in her hands, the girl admits that she could have fought off the man herself, but she was afraid of causing him serious harm. Kanata does not believe her words, because the man seemed very strong and dangerous to him. The unknown girl turned to the young man and sincerely thanked him for his kindness. She thanked the hero, calling him a stranger, and looked a little confused. Kanata smiles shyly and admits that it wasn't difficult for him. He says that sometimes it's nice to help a beautiful girl. The stranger awkwardly exclaims in response. The girl insists that there are many other girls around who are much more beautiful than her. The young man remarks that the standards of beauty here are really high. He is not surprised, because he is in another world. Unfazed, Kanata runs his hand over his head. The girl notices something and sighs. The hero doesn't understand what's happening. The stranger asks what the young man has on his hand, and Kanata glances at his hand, realizing that it's a bandage. Kanata remembers how he injured himself yesterday while cleaning. Several books fell on his hand. The hero notices that his hand is a little swollen, but he is sure that everything will heal and be fine by tomorrow. The girl smiles and advises the hero to take better care of himself. Touched, Kanata gently strokes her head and says that she is very kind, not at all like his classmates. The girl looks at him in surprise. The stranger pulls away from the hero's hand. The young man immediately thinks that he has behaved in some way inappropriately, so he apologizes. But the girl assures him that this is not the case at all. Kanata notices that the girl looks younger than him. She looks around in surprise and denies it. They must be the same age, since she recently turned 17. She's just short. Hearing this, Kanata is surprised and apologizes to her. The stranger reassures Kanata, saying she shouldn't worry. She's used to being mistaken for a child. But suddenly the girl straightens up and confidently declares that, despite her appearance, she's already quite an adult. Surprised by this behavior, the young man first recoils in surprise, and then, embarrassed, closes his eyes and blushes. The stranger mocks him and declares that she knows how to behave in adult situations. The young man breathes a sigh of relief, but all sorts of unkind thoughts about this girl are already starting to stir in his head. A girl with a modest ribbon in her hair addresses the hero, calling him a good person and promising that they will meet again. Kanata says goodbye to the stranger and advises her not to forget to look around. The young man walks away, remembering what the girl looked like. She was dressed in a simple shirt and wore a cross on her chest. The hero thinks that this girl is probably studying to be a nun. The young man decides not to think about all this too deeply. He realizes that it is time to return home. It was already dusk when the girl finally returned to the church. Two girls were standing in the middle of the room. One of them turned to her friend and shared that the walk had been a success. The dark-haired girl turns to her short friend and tells her that she heard that someone who looked like her almost had a bad experience. She adds that such news is very upsetting. The girl says that if people knew that they had a holiday ahead of them, nothing like this would have happened. The short-haired blonde looks intently at her interlocutor. The dark-haired girl sighs and says that it is really a pity. The holy person really needs to be in the kingdom. This little girl is the key to negotiations with other states. But the girl is tired of listening to all this and, not wanting to hear any more words, simply leaves. The saint holds a large cross in her hands and says that people should not be divided into higher and lower, because this only gives rise to sin. She calls for getting rid of hatred for humanity. A calm smile shines on her face. The girl with dark hair raises her hand to her face and says that the Blessed Virgin is extremely merciful to people. The saint says that her walk was quite good. The girl shares that she met a good man today. Sviata remembers that the voice of that good-natured man seemed familiar to her. She doesn't want to think that it was the voice of someone close to her, so she decides that she just imagined it. The girl pushes back her chair. The saint sits down on a chair in the middle of the large, empty hall. She makes sure that no one else is there. Her face takes on a strange, unusual expression. The girl carefully takes out a device. In her hands is a small terminal with the Haitian logo on the screen. Lavushka presses a button, and the device comes to life. The entire room is filled with Hyeshin's voice, which sounds from his stream. The streamer apologizes to the audience for the wait, and promises that he will definitely read all the letters sent. Meanwhile, the Holy Virgin, excitedly waving her chair above her head, is happy that she was able to hear Hyeshin. The saint puts the phone on the chair and kneels before it. It turns out that she too is captivated by Hyeshin's passion. She was one of his devoted listeners. The girl turns on the stream and, holding her breath, whispers in admiration that he has a truly divine voice. The girl leans her head back on the chair next to the terminal. There are many reasons why she is so drawn to Hyeshin, but really, she just really likes the young man's voice. The saint's assistant leaves the church. She thinks about how calm the saint always remains, and it is this trait that truly inspires sincere respect in the girl. At that moment, wild screams suddenly rang out from behind the door of the room where the saint was. The girl, as if nothing had happened, asked in a surprisingly calm and pleasant voice why he was here. The girl slowly takes off her outerwear. She says quietly that she cleanses her body every day, although she herself is trembling a little. Every day, the holy girl carefully cleanses her body, dreaming of one day giving herself to Haitian completely and without a trace. To everyone around her, she is a model of peace and balance. But as soon as she hears Haitian's broadcast, her peace immediately disappears. As the girl listened to the streamer's voice, she felt a strange feeling in her stomach. These feelings made her suddenly hunch over. The girl enjoys listening to Haitian's stream. She really likes his voice. She even jokes that she might get pregnant from such feelings. Suddenly, Haitian announces that she wants to show her list or something before continuing the stream. The girl is surprised, looks at the terminal, and quickly gets up from the floor. Sviata curiously asks the streamer what he's talking about. Her clothes are hanging loosely and her hair is disheveled. Suddenly, the small terminal in her hands starts to vibrate. The streamer's hands appear on the screen of the small terminal. He says that he can now show everyone his hands, and then asks if everyone can really see them, because he himself is not sure that the image is being transmitted correctly. The stunned girl silently stares at the small screen, not believing what she is seeing. Her face fills with astonishment, and she quietly asks how this is even possible. The holy woman begins to lose her composure even more. She cannot believe that all this is really happening, and suspects that she is simply being mocked. The girl remembers that today she saw the same bandages as Hyeshin's on the arm of a kind man who helped her that day. And then it dawns on her. That kind stranger was Hyeshin himself. Hyeshin holds both hands near the monitor. He has created a camera in this world that resembles the one in his past life. The hero asks if the audience can see his hands and the bandages lying on the boy's left forearm. The hero says that the camera is now showing his hands. The streamer adds that he hinted to the audience this morning about some new magical device. The young man is very happy. Finally, everything worked out the way he had planned. Haitian says he's just checking the camera today. The young man mentally praises himself for doing everything well. The hero runs his hand under the camera. The young man looks at his terminal screen and sees a video of his hand back in the frame. The hero realizes that the swelling has still not gone down, and his hand doesn't look too good. As Haitian raises his hands to the camera, checking to see if everything is okay, the thought occurs to him. I should have put on gloves. The hero feels anxious. He is afraid that he will be noticed and punished. After a few seconds, Gaishin laughed out loud, because he thought it was funny that no one would be able to recognize his hands. At this moment, the stunned Holy Virgin cannot calm down. She looks at Heshin's hands lying on the terminal screen and cannot believe her eyes. Maria is also watching the guy's stream right now. She holds her terminal in her hands and can't believe that she is holding the hands of the man she loves. As soon as Shrauza noticed that Heshin's hand was injured, she immediately prepared a first aid kit. The girl is very worried about her friend's injury, and the commentators are crazy with curiosity, bombarding the hero with questions about what happened. Unsuspecting, Haitian sat in his room in front of the monitor. He calmly told me that he had recently heard his own voice while cleaning. The young man advised all the listeners to be more careful when tidying up the shelves. The young man announced that he had decided to show the new device to the audience. He shared his plans to use this camera in the future so that everyone could see various interesting moments. The hero had already prepared dinner and neatly arranged the dishes on the table. Commentators joke that they want to shake his hand. Someone writes with delight that they finally saw the hero's hands, while another advises Heshin not to rush to take his hand away. The young man reassures everyone. There is no need to worry, it is just a bruise. Haitian told listeners that he wanted to continue streaming. Meanwhile, the city gradually fell into a night of silence. 2 hours have passed, and the young man is still streaming. The hero admits that he is having a lot of fun today communicating with the audience. At this moment, the streamer receives another email. Haitian is about to open a new letter. At that moment, he thinks, he must be careful with the camera so that no one notices him. The young man unfolds the letter, his face becoming more and more serious with each word. The hero notices that this is not just a letter, its content is more like a real threat. The man addresses Haitian with a letter and introduces himself as Mantis, a local authority and the leader of the Gilms gang. Mantis bluntly says that he doesn't care what Haitian's stream is called. The main thing is that he demands that the hero immediately stop this activity. Bogomol said that his accomplices remembered a young man with strong, hardened hands. This man pierced the terminal with a dagger, then smashed the screen into small fragments. The Mantis writes that there are people who can easily swallow people like Haitian. He vows to find the streamer and kill him. Hearing these threats against Haitian, Maria, Shrauza, and the Holy Virgin flare up with anger. A man texts Gaishin, advising him to run to his bed and tremble in fear. In response, the streamer rudely waves the stranger away and makes an obscene gesture. The hero believes that most likely, it's just jealousy. The young man doesn't even deny that some people might be annoyed just by the fact of his presence. The young man believes that he is hiding his true identity well, and in the meantime, he is earning a lot of money. The hero understands that his actions may cause indignation among some people. Gaishin claims that he doesn't need to be threatened. If they lived in a different era, this person would have been quickly found and punished. After that, his streamer moves on to the next letter from the listener. Even if the Mantis's words were empty, he shouldn't have threatened Geshen live. However, the robbers didn't know that. Meanwhile, those who worship Geshen had already begun to act. Hours after the Mantis threatened the streamer live, his gang was wiped out. Only lifeless bodies remained in the cave where they were hiding. The Mantis himself miraculously escaped and is now desperately searching for a way to escape. But the man is rushing through the mountains and doesn't understand what happened. He doesn't stop for a moment, and in the heat of the moment he starts swearing. Mantis remembers how the knights came to their cave recently and wiped out all of his relatives. He still doesn't understand how they managed to get here. Before the man's eyes, the cloaked men destroyed his accomplices with magic. The Mantis watched in horror, not understanding what they were doing in such a place. The man is now running, trying to escape and hide somewhere far away. Mantis blames Haitian for everything and remembers how he stabbed the terminal with a dagger. Suddenly someone turns to the Mantis and asks him how he dared to threaten Mr. Haitian. The man didn't expect to be exposed so quickly. A powerful blow from the stranger's sword severed the praying Mantis's leg, sending it flying high into the air. The man realized with horror what had happened. The man is pierced by unbearable pain, and he looks around sharply. Behind him on the ground he sees his leg. Someone has cut it off. He screams at the top of his voice in horror and pain. A young man in armor appears from around the corner. Slowly approaching the Mantis, he says that the group's power was too weak. They didn't even notice his sword strike. The blonde-haired young man holds a sword and is dressed in battle armor. He begs the Mantis not to make him take this on against him again. Meanwhile, the man without a leg tries to escape, but a magical force pierces his hand. A beautiful girl, holding a large cross, agrees with the young man in armor, saying that the mantis is too difficult to defeat. An amazing magical energy flows from the girl. Demons are watching the people from the top of the mountain. They see a knight and a nun punishing a mantis. One of the demons turns to the demoness. They shouldn't have come here, because the people managed everything without them. The mantis lies on the ground, bound by a spell, and tries in vain to escape. The man looks around in surprise. He has no idea who these people are or why they are chasing him. A few hours earlier, Mary had ordered her subordinates to find the mantis gang, and the Blessed Virgin had instructed her assistants to carry out God's punishment. Shrauza had given a simple order: destroy everyone without exception. All three girls, who were crazy about the streamer, claimed to trust Mr. Haishin. Their loyal subordinates shared this belief and immediately set out to carry out their assigned tasks. The young man in armor turns to the mantis and asks if he really intended to kill Gishain. He adds with surprise that he had no idea that there were still such naive people left in our time. The nun with the cross quietly notes that it is time to end this ordeal. These subordinates can even be called fanatics, but they are not as crazy as their mistresses, the knight and the nun. The conversation with the praying mantis comes to an end, and the demons on the mountain laugh and watch all this. You need to be careful about what you post online. This was an important lesson for the praying mantis. However, he will never be able to share this wisdom with others. Events unfold a few days later. The academy students read the news. The kingdom's night watch has successfully eliminated a bandit group called the Mantis Cell. All the students gathered together, happily chatting among themselves. While Canada was listening to his classmates discussing the news, he thought the nickname Mantis was familiar. At that moment, a classmate passed by the boy, accidentally threw a handkerchief, but did not even notice it. Kanata politely tells his classmate that he dropped his handkerchief. However, the boy just glares at him and silently walks away, not even picking up his thing. The protagonist remains seated, puzzled by such indifference. The young man touches his head with his hands. Kanata realizes that even ordinary people have been avoiding him lately. This makes him sad. The hero bows his head on the table, not understanding why everyone treats him this way. He is very unhappy about being an outcast because of an incident in practice. Nearby, two classmates are discussing what is happening at school. One of them says that today the teachers have gathered for an important meeting. A young teacher enters the classroom. He greets everyone with a good morning and asks them to take their seats. The students obediently sit down at their desks. The students look at the teacher and notice that he looks exhausted and neglected. Genuine fatigue is clearly visible in his young eyes. Suddenly, the young teacher announces that there will be a new student in their class from now on. She calmly leans on the lectern as she announces the news. But the whole class is happy about this news. Every student jumps up and down in excitement. Kanata doesn't understand why everyone is reacting so violently to this news. A short girl walks down an empty corridor. The teacher informs her that the new student is an integral part of the kingdom. The girl is closely connected with the monarch's family. Previously, only the chosen ones could recognize her by face, but now she has decided to openly declare herself. The young teacher addresses all the students and asks them to never be rude to her. Then she calls the girl to come into the classroom. The students listen attentively to every word the teacher says. Canada notices the new student and can't believe his eyes. The boy looks at the girl, and it's hard for him to hide his surprise. A short girl with short blonde hair and large expressive eyes enters the classroom. She smiles warmly and introduces herself to everyone, saying that she is very pleased to meet them. Her name is Alfanov. Despite her young age, this girl has already become a saint. Kanata looks at her in shock and realizes that this is the same girl he recently saved and lightly touched her head, showing disrespect. Students from all over the academy rush to Canada class to see the saint with their own eyes. The news that the saint had been transferred to Class S stunned everyone. Long lines of students from different classes hurried to meet Alfana. The young man watches everything that happens with a smile on his face. Kanata is a little surprised at how quickly rumors of Alfana's appearance at the academy have spread among everyone. Alfana sat at her desk, confused. The girl was surrounded by students from all over the academy. Everyone was competing to tell her that they had long dreamed of meeting her and asked to look at them. She silently looked at everyone. For her, such a reaction was not a surprise. One brave girl asked Alfana why she had decided to transfer to this academy. Alfana was momentarily confused by the question and looked at her brave classmate in embarrassment. Sveta quietly replies that her translation is something like a journey. Alfana smiles mysteriously and winks at the classmates who were nearby. The girl admits that she actually has a clear goal. Canada stares ahead, lost in thought. The hero is also thoughtfully musing about something of his own. The young man recalls reading about the saint as a child. When Kanata was born for the second time, he began to explore this new world with enthusiasm. The hero mentions that every few decades, a girl with the right character and magical abilities is chosen for this role. The saint has the authority of the church and is actively involved in diplomatic affairs. In addition, she has connections with the royal family. In other words, the saint is one of the most important figures in the country. Kanata had heard that Alana was friends with Maria, a girl who had arrived by carriage after a diplomatic mission. But the boy could not even imagine that this girl would turn out to be a new student who had been transferred to their school. Kanata was convinced that with such extraordinary magical abilities, Alana should be studying in the best class of SSS. The hero could not help but think about this girl, still remembering her bright smile. Kanata remembered how they had first met, and he gently stroked Alphan's head. He was genuinely glad that the girl didn't take the gesture as an insult. The hero thinks he looks completely inconspicuous, and most likely Alana wouldn't even recognize his face. At that moment, one of Kanata's classmates walks past him. He unceremoniously pushes everyone standing next to the saint away. The young man confidently straightens up and turns to Alana. He introduces himself. His name is Zector, and he is the second son of the Rondor family. Zector is in the SSS class. Alana, who was not expecting such confidence at all, replies a little confused that she is also pleased to meet him. Zector asked the saint if she knew that Maria had not come to school today due to official business. Maria is also in the SSS class, but Alana had no idea about her friend's absence. The inspector asks the girl if she would mind if he gave her a tour of the school instead of Maria. The young man addresses Alana, calling her by name. Alana smiles gently and sincerely thanks the prisoner for his desire to help. But, unfortunately, she is forced to refuse. The guy does not hide his surprise at such an answer. The saint turns to the young man and asks if he has given him permission to address her by her name. There is a cold threat in her voice, which even makes the air feel tense. Alana radiates an invisible but powerful energy, and the prisoner involuntarily shrinks from fear and excitement. However, the young man bowed low and apologized to the saint for his behavior. Kanata immediately recognized him as the same boy who had humiliated the commoners. Alana quickly put him in his place, and everyone around him could not hold back their laughter. A depressed young man walks past Kanata. The hero realizes that the next lesson will be practical, so there is no time for gloating. Kanata decides that it is better to focus on the evening stream now. Sometime later, the students gather on the field for a practical training session. Alana stands by the fence, preparing to show her strength. The teacher watches closely beside her. Tiny but brave, Alana dares to use a water spell, aiming it precisely at the target in front of her. The girl quickly creates a steady but powerful jet of water that rushes forward like a blade. The column of water released by Alana flies straight towards the target and instantly cuts it in half. The tree cracks with a loud crack. The classmates watch all this, hiding behind a protective fence. The classmates, looking at the target cut in half, finally understand what the saint's true power is. Water slowly flows down the two halves of the wooden target. These are the remains of the water stream of Alana. One of the young men says that Alana is incredible and no worse than Maria. The second adds that she is even better. But it is strange that she ended up in Class S. The third notes that it would be nice to make a good impression on her. Kanata overhears their conversation and thinks that it's quite understandable for his classmates. Getting to know Alana better would be of great benefit to their families. But the hero decides that it's more important to focus on himself right now, not to engage in such matters. The old teacher announces that Kanata is next. A young boy emerges from the crowd of students and approaches the man standing in front of the protective fence. Alana is still nearby. Kanata and Sviata meet each other's eyes as they pass by. At that moment, standing very close to each other, Sviata quietly whispers good luck to the boy and calls him a good person. Stunned by her words, Kanata turns and looks after her. The young man cannot believe that the girl would say such a thing to him. Alpha calmly walks out of the training ground as if nothing happened. The girls hum a song quietly. Kanata is still not sure if he's dreaming. One of the heroes suddenly realizes that Alpha wished him luck. Confident, Kanata heads to the place where the spells are to be demonstrated. The hero remembers how a beautiful girl wished him luck, so now he must set a good example. The teacher notices that Kanata seems more motivated than usual today. The young man stands in a fighting stance and realizes that he must now keep his power under control so as not to cause an explosion like last time. The hero concentrates and creates a spell, a jet of water. The young man casts his final spell directly at the target. The jet of water, resembling a rope, hits the target squarely in the middle, but does not pierce it through. This time the hero manages to control his power. The teacher approaches the target and examines with interest the mark the young man has left in the middle. Meanwhile, the boy is lost in his own thoughts. However, his self-confident classmates notice that Canada is still acting too confident. One of the boys mockingly asks how such a commoner can do such a thing. Canada just looks at them silently and thinks that the familiar atmosphere has returned. The young man slowly returns to the group of classmates. Alana stands a little apart from everyone. Canada thinks that no matter what his classmates say, he doesn't care about their rude words. Suddenly, Alana's voice is heard. The girl is clearly stunned and upset. Sveta asks if she really heard correctly that her classmate called Canada a dirty commoner. The young man did not expect that Alana would suddenly come to his defense. He looks at the girl in surprise, and the saint is already standing in front of the hero and says, when she first heard Maria's story, she thought that it was someone's joke and that it simply could not be. Upset by this injustice, Alana admits that she did not expect to see the aristocrats of this academy truly humiliate ordinary people simply because of their status. In her hands, the girl clutches a large cross. Alana remarked with admiration that the magic Kanata had used was truly incredible. The girl added that she had only used brute force, but the young man's magic was surprisingly accurate, and their classmates could not hide their amazement at what they had heard. Somewhere in the distance, the teacher, who was standing near the target, looked around and thought that Alana had incredibly precise control. However, someone who knew little about magic would hardly have noticed anything special. The man was truly amazed by such skill. Alana demonstrates her power and pressures everyone present, emphasizing that students have no right to say something like that, especially to someone who is more talented than them. The girl adds that nobles should not consider themselves better than others. The other students apologize in confusion. Sveta admits that she is bitter and sad to watch such events. All her classmates are almost on their knees in front of that girl. Behind her back, a huge shadow grows, terrifying everyone present. Alana declares that all her classmates have disgraced themselves. Behind the girl appears a giant, creepy skeleton with a huge cross in its hands. The saint looks at all the students with a stern look. It is clear that she is not in the mood for jokes at all. Kanata watches everything that happens and finds himself thinking that he even enjoys watching others get scolded. But the young man notices that his classmate reacts quite differently, as if he sees something that he himself does not notice. This seems quite strange to him. The arrogant classmates are stunned by Alana's power. The powerful energy literally crushes them to the floor. The young boys try to get up, but the weight of this invisible force does not allow them to even get to their feet. They convulsively lean on their hands, trying to get up, but to no avail. Kanata watches them and thinks that they are exaggerating the drama of the situation a little. The students, their eyes flashing angrily, turn their heads in his direction. Envious classmates glare at the hero, believing that because of him they have received a reprimand not only from Princess Mary, but also from Saint Alana. Canada notices their hostile looks and thinks that after this they have hated him even more. Sometime later, during lunch break, Kanata was left alone, sitting on a special platform and calmly eating his lunch. The young man thought that he had not been able to talk properly with Alana until now. The hero stared thoughtfully ahead, lost in his thoughts. The young man finishes his sandwich and thinks that everything is not so bad, because he has those who listen to him. However, a little sadness remains in the hero's soul. Kanata decides not to be sad anymore. The hero raises his hands high above his head and thinks that now he needs to come up with a new greeting for the stream. This idea immediately lifts the young man's spirits. The hero solemnly welcomes everyone to the stream. First, he warmly addresses the audience and sincerely apologizes for the long wait. After that, he calls everyone to get started and gets down to business. But while he is talking enthusiastically, he doesn't even notice a girl quietly sneaking up behind him. The young man senses someone's presence and hears footsteps approaching. Canada turns sharply and sees the girl in front of him. His eyes widen in surprise. Alana smiles gently at the young man and asks who he just spoke to. Kanata didn't expect Alana to approach him at all. The sudden meeting during lunchtime scares Kanata. He fears his secret will soon be revealed. Suddenly appearing, Alana surprised the young man, and he asked her in confusion what she was doing here. Kanata was visibly nervous. After all, the saint herself was standing in front of him, and he found it hard to believe that this was really happening. Kanata suddenly jumped up from his seat, surprised and even a little confused. Alana explained that she had decided to explore the academy a little, and that's how she happened to be here while walking. Suddenly the girl smiled mysteriously and lowered her head. Alana came very close to the young man and said that they had met again. She called the hero a good person, and especially emphasized this by addressing him by his name, Kanata. Kanata was sincerely surprised by this behavior of the girl. The young man looks Alana down. The hero asks if she is the same girl he helped escape from a bully on the street. Alana bites her lip and blushes awkwardly, her nose and cheeks covered with a light blush. The saint confirms the boy's guess and insists that he not show her excessive respect. She asks the hero to address her as before, without formality and unnecessary ceremonies. Kanata is confused. He cannot believe her words and again asks uncertainly. But the young man agrees and says that he understood the girl's request. Alana thanks him for this. The girls are sincerely happy that Kanata agreed to communicate with her without unnecessary formalities. Suddenly, Kanata realizes that he is now alone with the saint. The hero is overcome with anxiety. What if someone sees them? The young man wonders if he should run away from here before anyone notices that they are together. Frightened, Kanata looks around carefully, trying to figure out who else can see them. Suddenly, Alana takes the boy's hand. The hero involuntarily recoils from surprise. It seems that the girl wants to tell him something. Alana, smiling charmingly, gently clasped the hero's hand with both hands and timidly asked if he would mind if she addressed him by his name. The girl also suggested that he call her simply Alana. Her eyes shone with the hope of hearing the hero's consent. Kanata is surprised and asks if he can really address her by her first name. The young man reminds her that the girl clearly didn't like it this morning. The hero recalls how Alana had previously quickly put her classmate in her place for such familiarity. Sviata sits down on the bench and mentally kicks the classmate she just put in her place. The girl insists again. She wants Kanata to call her by her first name. Alana reminds the main character that they are already acquaintances, so she really hopes that he will fulfill her request. The girl flirtatiously winks at the young man and smiles gently, covering her smile with her palm. Kanata looks at her in confusion, but reluctantly agrees. The girl insists so persistently that the boy finally clears his throat and says the first letter of her name, and then, plucking up the courage, says Alphen's name in full. From what he heard, it seemed as if Alphen's body had been shocked by an electric shock. The girl instantly blushed, and her demeanor changed. She trembled in bed, her eyes full of confusion. Looking at the young man, she quietly called his name. Kanata looks at the girl and cannot understand what happened to her. It seems to him that Alana is drunk on something, but in his eyes she still remains very cute. The guy notes that she has a wonderful character and a surprisingly attractive appearance. While the young man ponders how ideal Alana would be, it seems that her soul leaves her mistress's body and tries to run far away. She is sure that Kanata addressed her by name, and it has special meaning for her. The girl cannot believe her luck. Amazed and happy, Alana thought that when Kanata addressed her by name like that, it meant his consent to the marriage. And the young man himself, who understood nothing at all, was still standing in front of the girl. They say love is blind. Those who are truly in love often exaggerate even the smallest details, while the girl is lost in her own dreams. Kanata tries to bring her out of this state by calling her and urging her to return to reality. But Kanata doesn't notice any of this. The boy waves his hands in front of Alana's face and asks if she's asleep. The girl remains silent and continues to get lost in her own fantasies. The hero did not even suspect the secret desires that were hidden in the girl's soul. Finally, Alana came to her senses. The young man asked if she had woken up, and the girl, apologetically, admitted that she had dozed off for a moment. The next day, everything at the academy comes alive under the rays of the bright sun, which flood the luxuriously decorated building of the educational institution with light. Canon 8 enters the classroom and wonders where he should sit today. Some of the students are still lingering in the hallway. Two girls are chatting cheerfully about something of their own. As soon as the young man enters the classroom, his gaze immediately falls on Alana. As he had hoped, the girl arrived on time. Her classmates have already gathered around her. Everyone is trying to attract her attention and get to know her better. Meanwhile, someone else enters the classroom, but the stranger apologized and went straight into Canada's classroom. For some reason, all of the boys' classmates were incredibly surprised by her appearance. The hero heard their surprised exclamations, and he also drew attention to the girl standing in the doorway. Maria stands in the doorway. The girl tries not to stand out, but her appearance still attracts attention. Her classmates can't believe their eyes. Someone notices that this girl is Ms. Maria from the SSS class. Maria pretends not to notice the intense looks that everyone has suddenly cast on her. Meanwhile, the girl calls out to Alana, asking her to come over for a moment. Alana gets up from her seat and approaches the princess. The girl addresses Maria warmly, noting that they haven't seen each other for a long time. In response, Maria also takes a step towards her friend. But there is tension and a chill in their relationship. Suddenly, Maria gently touches Alfona's face and asks why her friend didn't tell her about her transfer to the academy. Alfona laughs merrily and apologizes to Maria, saying she just didn't have time to tell her. Kanata looks at the two extremely beautiful girls and mentally compares them to the famous stars he has seen in his ordinary life. The other classmates are also surprised and say that these girls are so bright and fabulously beautiful that it is difficult to even look at them. Alfona tells Maria that she just wanted to experience the atmosphere of the academy. She pauses briefly, as if about to say something else. Maria listens attentively to her friend, looking directly at her. Maria asks if Alfona wanted to add anything else, but the girl replies that that's all. Sveta turns slightly to the side and seems to look back, as if remembering something. Kanana carefully watches their conversation. Classmates, looking at Maria and Alfona, consider them extremely beautiful and elegant. Some even admit that they do not know how to approach them. Students dream of talking to Maria and Alfona. They want to be near them. Renat watches the girls and notices that even when they are in the center of attention, they calmly carry on a conversation, as if it is a completely normal thing for them. The hero understands that such publicity is not new to them. The girls are used to being in everyone's sight, so they are not bothered by it. The young man continues to watch the girls. It seems to him that they are not at all interested in what is happening around them. The girls are the center of attention, no matter whose eyes they are under, but they do not even try to hide. The hero believes that girls respond to those who talk to them anyway. Maria always looks at everyone with an indifferent expression, and Alfona smiles unnaturally, as if she is pretending. The guy notices that their reactions sometimes seem too artificial. Suddenly, Canada remembers how Alfona smiled warmly at him yesterday, and how Maria shared her advice a few days ago. He doesn't even realize that the girls behave with him completely differently than with others, as if they have turned on some special filter. They are only kind to him. Without this filter, Alphonse's fake smile would look like ordinary politeness, and Maria's advice turns into just a warning. Don't create unnecessary problems for others, because the hero doesn't even suspect the girl's true attitude towards him. He sincerely thinks that it's all just his imagination. Canada thinks that perhaps he is being too concerned about this. The hero recalls how Alfona once got angry at the impudent and rude behavior of her classmates, and sharply told them to keep their heads down. The young man looks closely at Maria and Alfona. The girls deliberately turn so that everyone can get a good look at them. Maria jokingly asks if anyone will notice if she stays here for class. Alfona smiles and says that she will be exposed immediately. Canada is a little sad to be alone, because he is bored. However, the hero had an idea, and he immediately decided to act. Behind him was a classmate sitting and reading something. The young man suddenly turns to his classmate, thinking that he could use a few friends. His sudden interest immediately attracts attention, especially to his classmate who is holding a book. Kanata addresses the young man in a friendly manner and asks what he had for dinner yesterday. One of the rude classmates grumbles at the hero to shut up. He clearly doesn't like the fact that Kanata decided to talk to him and learn more about him. Disappointed, Kanata drops his head on the table and thinks that everyone in the class hates him. His attempt to make friends is a complete failure. One of his classmates loudly remarks that Kanata thinks he is special, just because he knows a little about magic. The young man says that for now, he just wants to get some sleep. Maria hears his voice. A slight chill runs through the girl. The expression on her face changes abruptly. She recognizes something in the sound of the boy's voice, because he seems very familiar to her. As Kanata slowly falls asleep, it occurs to him that today's stream viewers will support him, and this calms the boy down a bit. Maria watches Kanata closely, but he doesn't notice her gaze. Alfona notices that Maria is acting differently and asks what happened. Maria replies that she is fine. The princess looked thoughtful and automatically touched her cheek with her hand. Alfona watches her strange behavior in surprise. The events unfold in parallel in the Xandard Empire, in a mysterious estate. Two men stand on either side of a large table covered with gold coins. It seems like a fortune. A stranger in a suit crushed a terminal with a bright logo on a small screen with the heel of his shoe. A man in a crow mask stands directly in front of him. A man in a suit with a mustache approaches a masked man named Raven and informs him that he has a special errand for him. The stranger in the raven mask and black suit exudes an ominous, oppressive aura. In response, the raven calmly tells the man that he is listening carefully to his orders. In a narrow stone alley stood a man, wrapped in a long dark cloak with a hood thrown over his head. His face was hidden by a mask resembling a crow's beak, and a saber hung from his belt. With his arms crossed over his chest, he calmly asked the man standing opposite him, whom did he need to kill? The interlocutor, with long straight hair and a smug smile, slightly covers his face with his hand. He addresses the man in the cloak, calls him a crow, and asks him not to rush things, advising him to take a break and control his curiosity. The crow stands with its head bowed, silent, and attentively awaits the man's next instructions. Meanwhile, a sound comes from an old phone with a cracked screen lying on the table. The young man, comfortably seated at his desk, ponders about the raven, while two girls nearby are talking to each other. They have also heard about this mysterious raven, but they don't believe it really exists. Maria adds, "Someone recently saw it in Mitre." The girls carefully examine the map and realize that they are still about 100 kilometers from the desired location. Then it suddenly dawns on them that now they too could become the crow's next target. However, the heroine is concerned that these people are from a family of cruel aristocrats. Raven does not seem to be so radical. She interrupts his conversation with the dark-haired boy who is still lying on the desk. The young man rises from his workplace, his face filled with discontent and reflection. Meanwhile, he continues to overhear the conversation of the girls, who discuss that one of their families is not involved in any dark deeds, and Raven would never do anything like that. The young man is lost in thought, wondering about the raven. Is it really just a bird, or perhaps a mysterious killer? In his imagination, the raven no longer appears as a feathered creature, but as a man in a black tuxedo, sunglasses and a hat, with a gun in his hand. Canada recalls that he sometimes gets fragmentary information from his listeners. Rumor has it that the raven is an unprincipled man who would kill anyone for money. However, Canada considered this to be just fiction, because all the rumors about the raven contradicted each other. Waking up from his thoughts, the boy realized that it was none of his business, and decided to sleep until the next lesson. He settled comfortably on his desk, and somewhere nearby, the familiar phone briefly rang again. At this moment, Raven and her employer are in a luxuriously furnished room. The employer is genuinely surprised that a true living legend has appeared in the Xandard Empire. After hearing the polite words addressed to him, Raven turns away from his interlocutor. The interlocutor is not very happy with this behavior, but Raven directly asks him to tell her why you are here. The mercenary, spreading his arms, turns around and notices that, unlike his interlocutor, he has absolutely no time for idle chatter. The customer, irritated by the mercenary's rudeness, barely had time to frown when his indignation instantly turned into panic. One of the killers, enraged by the client's impudence, abruptly jumped up, assumed a threatening pose, and was ready to rush forward with lightning speed to remind them who was setting the rules here. Stunned by the unexpected threat from the crow, the man crouches down in confusion, trying not to lose his balance. He looks fearfully at the mercenary, who sternly warns him that he will not do it again. The tension becomes unbearable, and the man finally cannot stand it anymore. He loses his balance, falls to the floor, and loudly exclaims his agreement in despair. The client is overcome with rage. His muscles tense, his fist clenches in anger, and he loudly exclaims that the killer's real target is this scumbag Haitian, who manipulates the politics of an entire country. Nearby lies a strange device from which mysterious sounds have recently been heard. The mercenary stands motionless, towering over the man who slumps helplessly to the floor. Despite his fear and humiliation, the client continues to make accusations. Furious, he explains feverishly. Because of Haitian's propaganda, slavery was abolished, his businesses collapsed, and he was almost bankrupt. Raven intervenes in the general indignation, interrupting everyone and showing that he is not interested in listening to anyone's complaints. He has already understood everything. The client gets down to business, explaining that there is no exact deadline for the task, and the target carefully hides his identity, so it will be difficult to find him. In addition, money for the work can be received in advance. The mercenary turns away from the customer and casually throws over his shoulder that he doesn't need the money. The man, confused, asks if Raven just wants to get paid after the job is done. The killer calmly turns away from the confused aristocrat and coldly declares that he is not going to carry out this task. In response, the indignant voice of the client is heard, insisting on explaining the reason for the refusal. Without even having time to ask a single question or understand what is happening, the aristocrat instantly becomes a victim of a raven. With a sharp movement of his sword, the raven cuts off his head. The head flies away, and the body, losing its balance, falls directly onto the table, which was littered with coins, breaking it with a loud crash and scattering the gold coins in all directions. Raven carefully sheathes his sword and decides that the client is no longer alive. The order has been cancelled. which means there is nothing to be rewarded for. Hearing a loud crash, the servants who were in the house immediately rushed to call the mistress, without waiting for her answer. She quickly entered the room and froze in place at what she saw. A decapitated man was lying on the floor. Seeing this terrible sight, she screamed so loudly that her scream was heard by the whole house. The raven takes to the air and flies swiftly over the rooftops through the darkness of the night. Under the moonlight, it reaches one of the tall buildings. A man in a dark raincoat suddenly found himself near the chapel. He hurriedly ran there and stopped, standing on the porch to rest and catch his breath. Raven stretches lazily, kneading his aching arms and placing his palm on his cloak, complaining that it's uncomfortable. When he abruptly rips off the cloak, a girl with short hair is revealed underneath. The girl mockingly says out loud that this scoundrel was going to kill Mr. Heishin. She takes off the mask that was held on by rubber bands, and now her face is completely exposed. The girl leans on this parapet of the chapel with one hand and clutches the raven mask with the other. She says that such scoundrels as him must be disposed of immediately, without wasting time on hesitation. The clock loudly strikes 6, and the sharp sound almost deafens the girl sitting nearby. She takes out her phone and clasps it in her hands. The girl remembers that the broadcast is about to begin. As soon as the girl hears a voice from the receiver greeting the gathered listeners, she immediately exclaims joyfully. After all, this voice belongs to her beloved Mr. Heishin. The people gathered near the bell tower do not understand why the birds are screaming so loudly. However, in reality, these were not ordinary bird calls, but the piercing sounds of someone hiding under the fame of a legendary murderer. Another obsessed listener watches everything, unrecognizable by the others. The voice on the phone tells me everything that happened. The girl presses her ear to the receiver and confesses that now she waits for the stream every night. For her, this pleasant voice heals the soul. The girl thinks about how Mr. Heishin will scold her, calling her a bad girl. She is a little embarrassed by these thoughts, but she admits to herself that she really wants Heishin to scold her. After all, now she feels like a murderer who avoids work. Raven realizes that she listened carefully to all of Heishin's words, because in the end he voiced the very problem that she could not solve on her own. The girl understands that she needs to take everything more seriously, and in her eyes, as well as on her face, real determination appears. The guy sitting in front of the monitor says he did everything he could. He tried to talk to someone, make friends. He enthusiastically shares these attempts, voices his thoughts out loud. He became upset, sour, and began to complain because the first person he met sent him away with the words, "Shut up." Therefore, Kaishin asks the audience to support him and sympathize. Raven holds her phone tightly in her hands, listening intently to the hero's podcast. Tears begin to roll down her cheeks. She sincerely sympathizes with Mr. Heishin, because she can hear the trembling in his voice. The girl assures that she would never hurt another person, although she herself recently beheaded one of the nobles. Another yandere is in anger. She screams, tightly gripping some device in her hands. She can't understand what kind of worthless creature dared to talk to a Haitian like that. But, despite everything she heard, deep down she is still grateful to the guy for making her happy with his beautiful voice, even in such a situation. Another heroine with black hair mockingly remarks that this is not at all surprising, because the squad of heroes also begins their address with an insult, and then immediately receives a curse right in the forehead. Alana was upset because of her own inattention. She hadn't even noticed what the guy was talking about. But at that very moment the loudspeaker blared. He was just joking. The young man asks the audience how to depict tears. He holds out a glass and explains that he used plain water, because no one would notice him anyway. Geisius adds that he is actually not very well liked at the academy. A real storm of emotions arose in the comments. Readers wrote that they believed the whole truth, and even they themselves could barely hold back their tears. The main character apologized for his deception and sincerely thanked everyone for the warm words of support that were addressed to him. One of the comments catches Heiss's attention. Someone asks how the boy would punish that rude person. Heiss is fascinated by this question, and he begins to tell us what he thinks about it. It turns out that the comment was written by Raven. She brings her phone closer to her and asks, as if to herself, if Mr. Heishin has replied to her message. The guy says that instead of revenge, he would like to give his abuser a second chance. The young man goes on to say that even if nothing works out, it will all come down to light conversation in the end. Moving closer to the phone, Raven takes his words as extremely generous and leaves her comment. The words appear on the boy's screen. "If this is not enough, just tell me." Heishin laughs at this point and replies that even simple sympathy is enough for him. The girl rises and asks again if compassion is all they are capable of. She approaches the closed, boarded-up door and stops in front of it. At that moment, Raven draws his sword and warns that for Mr. Haishin he is ready to kill anyone. Raven opens the door with one powerful swing of her sword, and a mountain of skulls immediately pours out before her, rolling right at her feet. She looks at them with a completely indifferent look. The girl lifts one of the skulls from the ground, clutches the hilt of the sword tightly in one hand, and places the other with the skull on her shoulder. Turning to the darkness, she calmly says that all she has to do is say her name, and there will be no trace of her enemies. Meanwhile, the guy continues to read the comments that people are so actively writing to him, and he wipes away tears of joy because all his listeners are kind and sincere people. The action is transferred to the royal capital, to the red light district. At the entrance to one of the houses stands a girl. She's having a lively conversation with a man. Inspired by the experience, the man tells Kana, the girl at the entrance, that they will see each other again very soon. As soon as the client is out of sight, the girl quickly returns inside the building. When Kana enters the room, she turns to the owner. He turns to her and tells her that she did a good job, and that he has already changed the bed linen. The girl thanks him for that. The hostess looks at the easygoing girl standing next to her and thinks, all her customers are always satisfied after meeting her. Therefore, it is not surprising that here, in this establishment, she takes first place. Smiling, the mature, attractive woman who drives men crazy says that she is simply a professional in this elite brothel. Therefore, she does her job confidently and without any shame. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the girl asks the owner to let her go due to an urgent and important matter. The man immediately understands what is at stake and mentally admits that he would be happy to listen to that stream himself, but he still has a lot of work to do. After Canada entered the private room, she quickly took off her dress and hung it neatly in her closet. Standing completely naked, the girl hears someone's voice describing her. Bright red hair, blue eyes, and seductive curves. Kana is already in her 20s, but every day she seems to blossom, becoming even more beautiful. Covering her delicate forms, the girl grabs a pillow and throws it forcefully at the brothel owner standing in the doorway, angrily shouting for him to leave immediately. It is already slowly getting dark outside the windows of the building. Night creeps in imperceptibly, covering everything with a thick blanket of darkness. The girl, lying on her side, thinks about how beautiful this day was. Now it will be even better. And all because Mr. Haishin picked up the phone when she called. The girl is waiting impatiently because the broadcast that has been on her mind all day is about to start. The clock strikes 8, the alarm clock rings, announcing the start of the stream, and then Haishin's voice comes from the phone, welcoming everyone who has gathered for his broadcast. At this moment, the girl suddenly loses control. Her gaze becomes wild. She licks her phone passionately and begins to repeat that she has been waiting for Mr. Haishin so long. A princess, a demon lord, a holy murderer, and now even courtesans. All these people have become believers. The hero's voice has reached even those realms he had no idea about. Hearing a voice on the phone, Kana learns that something has happened to the gentleman. She listens carefully and half-jokingly asks if he has had any problems too. The girl wraps herself in a blanket and quietly says that if Mr. Gizyan were around, she would give everything to heal him. After all, he has become a real salvation for those who, like Kana, are in her place and experiencing the same thing. Kana was born in the slums and was never connected to the elite world she now finds herself in. To survive, she first got a job working in a bar, entertaining patrons with drinks, and later rose to the status of a courtesan, spending nights with men. At one table, Kana and her friends started talking about how they had customers when they were young, but as they got older, they would have fewer customers. The girl with the short haircut sighs and says that she would have to go back to the slums, but Kana doesn't even want to imagine that. The girl recalls how she constantly moved from one owner to another until she ended up with a normal owner. Her previous owner only humiliated the girls in the brothel, called them dirty and treated them cruelly. But the new owner always praises the girls, is happy when the clients are satisfied. Akana was pulled out of her thoughts by someone's disgruntled exclamations. Someone was indignant that some unknown girl had lied. In fact, it wasn't just the future that worried each of them. Each of them had something of their own on their hearts. Two men are sitting nearby, discussing a recent incident. One of them says that their acquaintance is truly lucky, because even before the engagement he found out that his fiancée works in a brothel. The other replies that he immediately broke off relations with her, otherwise such a marriage would have brought shame to the whole family. In the society of that time, prostitutes were despised and treated like trash. Hearing such words, the courtesans became angry. They tightly gripped the edge of the table, tears glistening in their eyes. In this tense moment, Kana suggested that they return to her room. Meanwhile, at the brothel, the owner learns about everything that happened. To cheer up the girls and distract them from bad thoughts, he suggests they listen to Gaishin. After all, his broadcast is about to begin. A comment appears on the screen in which someone writes that the hero has no success with girls at all. This irritates the hero terribly. He considers such a remark to be absurd, because the author of the comment himself has no idea what he is talking about. Everyone in the room bursts into laughter as they listen to the hero's broadcast. They find him so funny and cute. Meanwhile, the hero himself quickly switches to the next email that came in during his stream. The story begins with the author confessing that he had a real obsession with cleanliness. However, recently, while walking down the street, he witnessed something truly terrifying. Haishun ponders these words, unconsciously touches his lips with his fingers, and, staring into the void, thoughtfully asks, what exactly scared the sender so much? 3 girls were listening to Mr. Haishun's stream, during which the commentator scornfully declared that some frivolous woman was courting a man, and added that such garbage should not pollute the city. Canny didn't like the streamer's words. A displeased expression appeared on her face, and at that moment she also threw the following at the commentator. Such a scumbag! The other 2 girls lowered their heads, tears rolling down their cheeks, and they sadly repeated that to everyone they had always been nothing, ordinary trash. In the past, they had simply dreamed of getting out of that hell. The first girl tries to calm her friends, along with her husband, by advising them to ignore the offensive words of the commentators addressed to them. The streamer explodes with indignation at the comment and exclaims that no one gave this person the right to speak like that and judge others just because of their profession. She convinces that this job is no worse than any other, and most girls choose this path not of their own free will, but simply to survive. After the streamer expressed his opinion, a wave of discussions about his rightness instantly appeared in the comments. Haishun calls for stopping treating these girls like garbage. After all, this profession also brings benefits, and everyone should reconsider their attitude. The streamer jumps up and down happily, waving his hand in the air, and passionately emphasizes that the girls should try to keep their customers happy. He sincerely admits that he dreams of living in a world where no one is ashamed of their work. Meanwhile, in the brothels of the country, tears were rolling down the cheeks of listeners. The program caused a huge public outcry, and thanks to it, the kingdom changed its attitude towards women of easy virtue, making their lives much easier. Some time later, Kana is lying in bed, listening to Gaishin's stream on her phone. She thanks him, and says that she doesn't know how things are in other countries, but they've started to be treated much better here. The girl was snapped out of her thoughts by the streamer's words. He admitted that he just wanted to make friends. But instead of a friendly response, the first thing he heard was a rude "shut up." At that moment, a man enters Kana's room, remembering that he forgot to say something. However, he is immediately startled to see a nervous and angry girl screaming and indignant that someone dared to silence Mr. Haishun. The other girls from Flirtuous Temperance, who also adored Haishun, were no less outraged than Kanu. For a long time, conversations did not subside in all the brothels of the country about who had dared to offend Haishun himself. A week has passed. Kanata walks through the city, feeling very hungry and wishing there was still fresh bread left on the shelves. One day, the hero meets a girl in a dress on the street. She is surprised by the unexpected meeting and asks if his name is Kanata. The boy himself is speechless with surprise, because in front of him stood a charming blonde, Princess Maria herself. Kanata whispers softly, covering her mouth with her hand. She asks if it's okay for the girl to walk down the street alone and receives an affirmative answer. The guy suddenly changes his mind when the woman assures him that they will soon be joined by her subordinate, an elderly man who, according to her, is now rushing to them. Kanata says he doesn't care, he'll keep going anyway. But the girl suddenly stops him by grabbing his hand. Maria awkwardly presses herself against Kanata, worried that he might be busy right now, and feeling equally embarrassed by the princess's behavior. Kanata, a little confused, asks what exactly she means. The girl, with a slight blush on her cheeks and a smile on her face, raises her finger up and gestures to invite them for a walk. Kanata, finding himself in an awkward situation, tries to get rid of Maria. After all, if others see them together, school life will turn into a real hell for him. Although in reality, he would like to walk next to her. The young man wondered how to delicately refuse this girl. But then she suddenly makes some noise to attract attention and asks if Kanata can hear her. Suddenly, Maria jumps up and runs away. She grabs the confused boy by the arm and drags him along, when suddenly a scream echoes in the street. The girl brakes sharply at a bend, and a picture appears before her eyes. Kana is in the unwanted embrace of her husband, trying in vain to escape. She tries to scream for him to let her go, but the words are lost in the air. The man, with a smile on his face, is outraged by the way he is being treated, because he is a true nobleman. However, Kana calmly replies that she is aware of his status, but she is completely indifferent. Maria and Kanata look at each other seriously. Suddenly, the boy jokes with a smile that the outing is cancelled and receives a joking agreement from the princess. The heroes who rush to help set off for Khan, and the nobles who were not expecting rescuers at all, froze in surprise as soon as they saw them. But Kanata and Maria, standing confidently side by side and not intending to retreat, boldly ordered the man to take his hands off the girl right in broad daylight. Kanata tightly squeezes her hand, from which a green light flashes. He resolutely stands against the nobleman who dared to touch Kanata. Maria also uses magic, demanding that the stranger take his hands away, because Cortisan does not approve of what is happening now. The man continues to hold Kana hostage and angrily glares at the heroes standing in front of him. He shouts, asking what they are doing here, and menacingly orders them not to interfere in his affairs. At this point, Kana looks around in fear, confusedly searching for salvation. Princess Maria's gaze is cold and penetrating. She silently surveys the aristocrats without saying a word, but anger is clearly visible in her eyes. At this moment, the green-haired aristocrat abruptly pushes Kana away from him and turns his gaze to Maria. Extending his hand to her, he enthusiastically notes how charming she is. The girl contemptuously pushes away someone else's hand and pushes it, causing the boy Ike to involuntarily step back. He is overcome with anger at what has happened. He begins to insult Maria, and at the top of his voice shouts that he will tear her to pieces. The aristocrat clenches his fist and prepares to attack. At that moment, the hero appeared nearby, grabbed the man by the shoulder, and asked him to calm down. Then Kanata used his magic, and green light slowly poured out of his palm. With one single movement, the boy easily knocked the aristocrat to the ground, completely paralyzing him. He didn't even have time to understand what had happened. The man grits his teeth, groans softly, and tries to lean on the ground to get up. But it's in vain. A powerful magical pressure seems to have pinned him to the ground, and his body has become as heavy as lead. Kanata opens one eye slightly and says that in a few more minutes the magical effect will wear off. For now, the captive should behave quietly and not draw attention to himself. Princess Maria admires Kanata's speed and abilities, then suddenly runs away, ordering the boy to apprehend the criminal. When asked where she is going, the girl does not answer anything. The aristocrat is furious, because an ordinary commoner dared to raise his hand against a person from high society and did not even think about the consequences. In response, Kanata calmly explains, it was simple self-defense, and he did nothing dangerous for himself. Meanwhile, Kana is watching everything that is happening. She folds her hands and apologizes for the trouble this man has caused. The guy has only one thought in his head. The girl in front of him is simply incredibly beautiful and attractive. The young man thought that it was girls like that who drove men crazy. However, leaving his thoughts aside, Kanana approached the girl and asked her with concern if she was okay, and if she had any injuries. Kate replies that she is fine, and tells him that the same aristocrat tried to buy her but was refused. The hero, not fully understanding what is being said, decides to ask again. At this moment, the captured aristocrat intervenes in the conversation. Raising his head, the man says that it is better for a child like the main character not to engage in such things, and the girl he is talking to is actually a treacherous and disgusting courtesan. Kanata asks again what exactly he means. He cries out at the top of his voice. The nobleman explains that he liked Kana very much, so he wants to take her for himself. However, she dared to refuse him. The girl snorts with contempt and is indignant that this unpleasant man is simply obsessed with his idea, and such a situation only makes the hero laugh. Kanata, without hesitation, lies down on the ground next to the aristocrat pinned to her and pokes him lightly in the forehead. She asks where such a worthless guy came from and what right he has to despise people just because of their work. But the guy doesn't stop and insists. Prostitution, unlike kidnapping, is not forbidden. At this moment, Kana thinks. This voice and the way he speaks remind her of someone. A voice comes from somewhere, wondering what that noise is now. It seems that those asking the question have already figured out where these sounds are coming from. At that moment, several curious passers-by turn the corner and start pointing at all three. For the aristocrat, this seems like a great opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The aristocrat, lying on the ground, shouts to the crowd that this man attacked him and promises a reward to whoever catches him. Kanata turns to the culprit in confusion, not believing that he could do such a thing. Maria, standing among the crowd, laughs and proclaims to the nobleman that he is a fool, because it was she who gathered all these people. The princess happily shares with everyone how the brave student protected the girl from the aristocrat who had lost his morals. Maria approaches the crowd near the rope, apologizes for the delay, and laughs with satisfaction. The defeated nobleman jumps up sharply from the ground and, shouting insults, rushes towards the princess. The crowd of spectators part, watching the man in amazement and marveling at how quickly he regained consciousness and got to his feet. The nobleman, who failed to reach Mary, is seized by the royal guards in shining armor and swords. Amidst the crowd and commotion, they throw him back to the ground. The princess, looking on, sternly remarks that now he is not only a detained aristocrat, but also a man who has lost his honor and has not lived up to noble standards. The astonished nobleman exclaims, "Where did the royal guards come from?" To this, Kana only scornfully replies that he is an idiot, because he did not even notice. In front of him stands a person of much higher rank than any aristocrat. This is the third princess, Maria. The nobleman is even more shocked. He finds it hard to believe that such a thing could have happened. And Maria, beaming with happiness, sincerely thanks Kanata for detaining this nobleman in time, because it was thanks to him that she managed to organize his public arrest. The embarrassed guy just shrugged it off, saying that he had done nothing special. Kanata, with his head in his hand, listens attentively to Maria. She explains that this aristocrat has barely managed to do anything, so the worst that could happen to him is deportation to the Empire. One of the royal guard soldiers approached the princess and offered to discuss a new security plan. She agreed to listen to him, satisfied with how everything turned out so beautifully. Kanata smiles, mentally rejoicing at the happy ending of events. However, he guesses that now the princess's security will probably be strengthened. At that moment, a girl approaches the boy, clearing her throat and trying to attract his attention. When he put his hand on the criminal's chest, it reminded him of his rescue, because the criminal was so scared that he had completely forgotten about the rope. The girl timidly but warmly took his hand in hers, blushed a little, and smiled, sincerely thanking him for saving her and supporting her efforts. The hero continues to hold the boy. He looks at his hand, then shrugs indifferently and says that nothing special happened, so why doesn't the girl just let him go? A memory suddenly flashes in Kana's mind. Her favorite streamer, Hyoshind, shows his hands during a broadcast and compares them to the hand of the savior. Sensing something wrong, Kana asks what the boy's name is. Suddenly frozen, he replies, "Kanata." The girl remembers the name and smiles slyly to herself. Without interrupting the conversation, the girl continued her story to the surprised hero. She confidently said that thanks to her experience, she had already learned to notice everything about men. The girl clearly pronounces her name, Kana, carefully straightens her amade, and takes out a sheet of paper, attracting Kanata's inquiring gaze with this movement. Kana smiled and asked Kanata to address her that way when they saw each other again, then handed him the piece of paper. She instructs the brothel administrator to show this note so that he can escort the visitor to her. The boy, who had turned away from Kana, began to examine the note, but the girl did not let him forget about her and attracted his attention again. The girl carefully covered her mouth with her hand and began to whisper softly in the wary hero's ear. If he suddenly wanted to rest, she wouldn't charge a penny for it. Kanata grimaced in surprise, holding his hand to his ear. Meanwhile, Kana said goodbye to the guy who was hurrying to work. Kanata, frozen with his mouth open in surprise, did not take his eyes off his friend. At that moment, Maria approached him from behind. Once again frightened by someone's appearance, the boy suddenly found himself the center of Maria's attention. She suddenly hugged him from behind, looking displeasedly after Kani, who was walking away, and grumbling to herself that she was a liar after all. It was already getting dark outside, and Maria and Kanata noticed it. They realized it was time to head back to the dormitory. Waving his hand, he could not take his eyes off the princess and said that it was time to go, wished her good night, and was about to leave. But Maria suddenly stopped him again, grabbing his waistcoat. The princess was unhappy with how suddenly the young man left. She gradually began to resent that he had not even offered to accompany her. The path was uncomfortable, both were embarrassed, but the young man did not dare to look back or understand Maria's objections. After all, if they were seen together within the walls of the academy, it could turn into trouble. After the refusal, the princess was upset. It seemed to her that Katana reminded her of Hyeshin, the one who would definitely agree to walk her home. Some time has passed, and the detained aristocrat hooligan, sitting in an iron cage, finally hears his sentence. Tomorrow he will be sent back to his homeland. In the meantime, he should think carefully about his own behavior. The enraged man curses himself and decides that he should never have anything to do with the princess again. Grimacing with displeasure, the prisoner recalls everything that happened and blames Kanata for his troubles, because he is just a pitiful commoner who put him in a stupid situation. Having remembered the name of the offender, the prisoner understands that he does not need to know anything more. Kanata and Princess Mary are walking together down a city street. Mary calmly notes that the old man usually scolds her for leaving without permission. The boy is genuinely surprised. Has she really not told anyone about her departure? The main character is sitting at home, streaming and looking at the comments. One of the viewers asks how he feels about his influence on others, especially Haitian's influence. The hero thinks about this question and admits that since he doesn't have that much influence, he just says what he really thinks. The guy wonders, what if he suddenly had incredible power and decided to take over the whole world? He wonders how others would react to that. What would the audience think and how would they behave? The girls unanimously began to write that they would do everything they could to help. One of them added that she would do her best to bring the whole world to the feet of the Lord, and the others declared that they would destroy all enemies and cleanse the earth to create a new order in the world. The guy immediately starts making excuses, assuring that he's not really interested in any conquests. He says it was all just a joke that shouldn't be ignored. After some thought, the guy remembered how in a past life a streamer made a bad joke, and it turned into a huge scandal. So now you need to watch your words carefully. In the comments, everyone writes that they would like to help the main character, but he replies that he has something more in mind than just chatting and is going to develop his content. He asks to subscribe and follow the news. The guy decided to try the same thing that bloggers did in his past life. For now, the camera only shows his hands, but he dreams of making it portable and calling his stream Haitian's Travels. At that moment, a recognizable squeaking sound is heard on the stream. It's Donat. A message appears on the screen. The nameless princess confesses her love to the hero. In response, he also confesses with a smile that he loves her. This causes Maria to burst into an uncontrollable outburst of joy. She hugs herself with happiness and screams, not even considering that the boy has added love to his words for all the other listeners. The guy turns away from the screen feeling an inexplicable discomfort from what he heard. His skin crawled. And suddenly a strange bird cry is heard. Although in fact these sounds are made by Maria. Her voice reaches even the streamer itself. The next day, the boy returns to class, feeling very sleepy. Suddenly, he hears the girls nearby discussing the fact that a gal trace is a Hastine. This surprises Kanata greatly, and he begins to listen carefully to their conversation. The hero watches in horror as the girls argue about whether being the same age can be considered something in common. Meanwhile, one of his classmates confidently declares that this is definitely not what an SS student should be doing, because the real Haishin comes from a simple family, while an elite class student should come from an influential aristocratic family. The young man notices that his students have gathered in the classroom. However, he cannot openly admit that he is the real Gaishin, because when you gain popularity, fakes also appear. So the main character decides to expose this lie during the broadcast. But there's one problem. It would look too suspicious. The audience would immediately guess that Haishin is from the same school. Then another idea comes up. To say that everything I heard before was a tip from someone outside. The boy leaned back on his desk, thinking about how he couldn't stand aristocrats who looked down on others. But despite this, the imposter intrigued him, so Kanata thoughtfully left the classroom. At that moment, the saint was thinking about something of her own and silently followed the hero with her gaze, avoiding answering the questions of her friend, who was interested in her thoughts. The protagonist approaches the SS classroom, but suddenly stops when he hears a voice from within the room. Someone inside is frantically trying to prove that he is the real robber. Canada peeks into the office where the guy is sitting and asks why no one believes him. After all, he's a real streamer. The young man realizes that most likely everything will be revealed without his participation. The same fake streamer's classmates consider Aguila a liar. The guy realizes that simply giving his name is not enough, and the whole situation reminds him a lot of the fake accounts from his past life. Kanata decides to find out why the S-class student is impersonating Haitian, and sets out to conduct his own investigation. After class, Agil does not hold back his anger. He kicks the fence, shouting loudly that no one has even seen the face of this unfortunate commoner. So why do people refuse to believe and listen to a true aristocrat, to whose class the whole world belongs? At this time, the main character hides in the grass nearby and listens attentively to every word. The young man continued to follow the same aristocrat and learned that he was trying to improve his family's situation, use the streamer's listeners for his own benefit, and receive donations from them. That's why the aristocrat pretends. The real Haishin, sitting in the grass, was wondering to himself how stupid this guy was. He wouldn't be able to do anything anyway. After all, in order to conduct a speech, you need boundless magical power. At that moment, a girl quietly crept up behind him and said that this gentleman had completely deprived this guy of his mind. Taking off her glasses and trembling with fear, Katana looks at the two girls who appeared out of nowhere. They say contemptuously that the fool has gone too far and there is no way to save him. Leaning on his elbow, Katana asks how long these girls have been with him, but they excuse themselves because they need to go. They have business with the goose. The girl, confused, asks the boy if he even knows he's Shin. To this, Canada exclaims in surprise and asks again what she means. Alana confesses that she has long admired this gentleman, and this news truly surprises both Catan and Maria. 3 minutes ago, the girls noticed him on the street. He was hiding in the bushes, as if trying to remain unnoticed. Alana reveals that Maria also admires Mr. Haitian and suggests that she doesn't even seem to know who Canada is. As she continues her confession, Alana notices that she rarely manages to truly relax. But as soon as she hears Mr. Haitian's voice, her heart immediately finds peace. Laughing, the narrator is convinced that Maria feels the same way, and this unexpected frankness infuriates Maria. At this time, Katana sits apart from the girls and is shocked by their confessions. The young man, who pretends to be Gishian, is going crazy with anger. Everywhere around him there is only talk of the Lord. He is already fed up with these fanatics. He has no strength to endure it anymore. Angry about what is happening, the girls decide not to sit idly by and deal with this situation. Maria suddenly notices that she accidentally grabbed a sword with her, and her friend Alana, with a cross, remarks that the boy must be atoning for his sins. Remembering Kanata's presence, the girls calmed down a bit and realized that they were not behaving so casually. The boy was glad that the princess herself and the saints turned out to be such attentive listeners, but he still felt awkward, because he had just been thinking aloud about how the princess's country should be arranged. Maria, who came up from behind, was upset. She turned to Kanaga, who was sitting on the ground, and told him that he seemed indifferent to everything that was happening. The girl turns her head away in displeasure, but resolutely declares that she will not allow anyone to humiliate those who are dear to her. After receiving praise, Kanata agrees with Maria's opinion and wonders how good she really is. Remembering herself, Alana, with a sad face, tells the boy who just got up from the ground that she is not going to forgive Aguila either, and asks him what he thinks about what happened in Kanata. The guy asks again if the girl is interested in his opinion, and this time he gets an affirmative answer. Maria stands behind, thoughtfully watching their conversation, listening intently to every word. His plan is simple. First of all, he needs to convince Agil not to lie anymore, because the real Haishin will not like too harsh a punishment. For him, it is much more important that Agil sincerely repent. Suddenly, a large dark ball appears on the wall, which angrily pushes the cunning golem away. Canada peeks out from behind the bushes, watching in a daze as she watches what has happened, and, not hiding her surprise, asks what it was and where Agil has gone. Maria is also confused. It seems as if something has simply swallowed him. It is very strange. Maria turns to Alana, who is sitting on the ground, and she replies with a serious look that she felt a demonic force. A thunderstorm flashes above the castle. Thunder cracks the dark sky, and birds circle in the air. At that moment, a stern, serious voice is heard. Someone is calling the unfortunate little man. On the high steps at the entrance to the castle, 2 demons suddenly appeared in a flash of light right in front of Agil. The demoness named Shrausa rudely and sharply turned to the boy who, trembling with fear, stood opposite her, and asked if he was the same Gishin. Terrified, Agil, pressing his hand to his chest, feels as if his heart is about to sink to its very heels. The mere presence of this girl leaves him speechless. Her aura is so strong that it prevents him from uttering a word. The second demon, who appeared next to his mistress, tells her that the boy in front of them is an impostor. With that much magical power, it is simply impossible to transmit over long distances, as a real Haitian does. At the same time, Shroza confidently declares that he understands well what is happening here. Descending the stairs to the trembling Agila with a threatening look, the girl becomes even more angry. It's not enough for her that an impostor pretended to be her fiancé. Grimacing in a terrible grimace, Strauss held out his hand, on which the veins were clearly visible, and threatening the boy, said that he hoped that he was ready to accept the punishment. Lively, frightened by the demoness, lost his balance, fell to the ground directly on his buttock, and, unable to restrain himself from fear, wet his pants. The trio emerged from their hiding place in the bushes to search for the missing impostor, and set off along the academy's paths. Looking around, the girls eventually sat down on a bench to rest and better consider their next steps. Passing by a large tree, the girls decided to stop and sit down to reflect on the recent events. Kanata is scurrying around, trying to figure out where the boy has disappeared to. But his friends don't care about his disappearance. They don't care about this issue. However, Alana thinks differently. As a saint, she has no right to ignore such an event. Maria thinks, If she were a demon, she would also take the imposter to see if the rumors are true. Alana understands that even among demons there are those who are loyal to their beliefs. Hearing the girls happily discussing something, the guy pays attention, turns to them, and asks what they are chatting about so animatedly. A young man stares with anxiety and surprise at a huge black ball hanging in the sky. He cannot understand what is happening, while the girls nearby pay almost no attention to it. Grabbing Maria and Alana by the hands, who had not even had time to come to their senses, the rope abruptly jumped away from the suddenly appeared dark ball, trying to protect both heroines. An unpleasant stench gradually spread around the heroes, which they did not like at all. They began to complain about this smell, clutching their noses and trying to protect themselves from it in some way. Suddenly, the boy, who had just wet his pants from fear and was lying on the ground, remembered how the missing boy had walked alongside a stranger. The stranger sternly ordered him to get up and reminded him that he was involved in some business. Sitting next to our three heroes near a tree with a bench around it, the demon burst into loud laughter and began to tell what a disgrace the story with the branch had turned out to be. The guy with blonde hair and two horns on one side of his head reached out to Maria, Alana, and Canada. Along the way, he admitted that the whole situation looked rather awkward. Gathering themselves in a tense huddle, the girls, who had been approached by the demon, decided to protect Kanata, a boy who was surprised to learn that he had already joined the ranks of heroes. They quickly drew their pistols and took up confident fighting positions, ready to repel the unwanted guests. Raising his hands up, the demon, addressing the trio, seems to apologize for his unexpected appearance. Seeing the surprised heroes, the demon explained the situation. This boy, referring to Aguila, was impersonating Mr. Haishin, which angered his boss. He also added that the educational work was already completed, so he came to return the frightened imposter. Seeing how people reacted to the mention of the streamer, the demon wondered in surprise if they knew this man. Maria carefully lowered her sword, confirming the demon's guess, and Alana added that she felt no hostility from him. Gritting his teeth, the demon noticed that they were all in a similar situation. However, Kanata, not understanding his words, asked what exactly the man meant. The man decided to explain that many demons, like him, were in Geishini, emphasizing that the demon lord was simply delighted with him and never missed a single broadcast, always actively participating. After hearing all these details from the demon, Kanata wondered about the importance of his words. Overwhelmed with feelings of love for Haishin, Maria and Alana marvel at how their master was able to subdue even the demon lord himself, breaking down the wall between humans and demons. After thinking about what is happening, the man realizes these girls are behaving in front of him in the same way as the master, and right now they too have their eyes fixed on the rope. After examining the young man more closely, the demon smiles sweetly, is surprised, and opens his mouth in surprise. Kanata, full of questions, hears the man addressing him, admiring his extraordinary magical power. The man adds that if Kanata had called himself Haishin, he would have believed it immediately. However, not wanting to reveal his true identity, Kanata pretends not to believe the demon's words. Stopping uncertainly, Kanaana feels his heart pounding with excitement and wonders if he has managed to maintain an indifferent expression on his face. Eavesdropping on the boys' conversation, Maria thinks, Kanata's magic impressed even a demon so much. Her memory flashes back to how strongly and bravely he dealt with the aristocratic bully. The girl cannot understand who this boy really is. Intervening in the conversation, Alana reminded everyone present of herself, apologized to the demon, and added that her friend had even more to do today than the others. In her opinion, the heretic had already been justly punished, and no one had any more reason for insults or reproaches. Smiling, the demon raised his index finger towards Alana, and jokingly remarked that dealing with her was a pleasure. The girl liked his behavior. Left alone, Canada and Alana sat side by side on a bench surrounding an old tree. Recalling recent events, the boy sums up. The demon returned to his strange realm, and Maria disappeared somewhere on her own business. Exhausted from the hardships of the day, Kanata shares his thoughts on the strangeness of the past day. Alana, who is sitting next to him, listens attentively and agrees with his words. She laughs softly, whispering that the boy must be very exhausted. When the girl addresses the guy by his name, she moves closer, still remaining next to him on the bench, and he sits, not understanding why she is behaving this way. Alana, filled with emotion, suddenly but gently takes Kanata's hand. She thanks him from the bottom of her heart for protecting her. It was really cool. The surprised guy finally understands why the girl called him. He imagines in his mind, if he could allow himself to behave the way he wants, he would respond to her gratitude in a confident, even a little domineering way, like a true alpha. After all, as usual, a man is supposed to protect a girl. Upset by his own thoughts and Alphen's behavior, he subtly turned away from his smiling interlocutor and suddenly realized how embarrassed he was. Seeing the boy look embarrassed and not answering, Alphana squeezed his hand even tighter. She beamed with happiness and smiled gently, adding that she liked it immensely. Hearing someone's mumbling, Kanata is momentarily distracted from the tense situation and remembers Aguila lying on the ground and wetting himself. The hero looks at the poor guy and says that he can't be left here alone. Approaching Aguila, Kanata carefully lifted him onto his back. Along the way, he again received compliments on his kindness. Everyone around him said that he was incredibly sensitive. Remembering the demon lord who had frightened him so much that he almost lost his mind, Agile felt a wave of fear again. Drops of cold sweat appeared on his face. The frightened man's body shook with violent tremors. He begged for help from Kanati, who, looking around in surprise, was still carrying him on his shoulders. Suddenly, Agile stops abruptly and runs away, begging Mr. Geisen for help, and the stunned boy and girl are left alone. After this event, Gil changed a lot. He admitted his lies, openly told about all the sins of his family, and loudly promised that their clan would rise again from the ashes for the glory of Haishin. He began to question witnesses about everything that had happened. A few days later, Kanata, wandering around the city, pondered. If the demon's words were to be believed, then the demon lord himself was listening to him like Mr. Haishin. But was that why he had proposed a truce? Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice broke the boy out of his thoughts, addressing him with some kind of request. The guy turns around at the voice, notices the girl, and asks if it was him they were addressing, to which he receives an affirmative answer. A confused girl with long dark hair, wearing a straw hat and a light dress, approached Kanata and asked him to show her the city. The guy, surprised and still not understanding what's happening, asks the girl again, because he sincerely believes that this is her first time here. On a city street, near one of the stalls, stands a girl who has asked Kanata to give her a tour of the city. The boy himself is next to her. Smiling happily, they are both enjoying a huge ice cream cone. Walking through the city, the boy enthusiastically told the girl, who was curious about everything around her, what exactly and where it was. People around looked at them with curiosity, because the girl was extremely beautiful and immediately attracted attention. Inspired by the walk, the dark-haired girl walks down the street, slightly ahead of the rope, and enthusiastically admits that she is very impressed by the views of the royal capital. A couple is walking along a noisy street, undoubtedly attracting the attention of everyone around them. They are chatting, and Canada curiously asks the girl if this is her first time here. The girl at first nods confidently, and then, a little confused, clarifies. She says this is her first time in the city of people. This slightly strange answer confuses the guy, and he is seriously confused. Satisfied and smiling, Canada suggests that the girl must not have been allowed to leave the house. But this does not surprise him at all, because his companion is so attractive that admiring her is a real pleasure. The girl returns to the boy and apologizes for forcing herself on him. She says that now he will have to deal with the village girl. Canada was confused by the girl's unexpected apology. He quickly approached her and tried to calm her down. To him, everything that was happening seemed completely ordinary. After all, he was walking next to a beautiful girl, and passers-by only looked at them with envy. The companion was surprised and thought about the words of the guy who told her that for him she was the most beautiful. Canada, not wanting to part with the beauty, offers to show her the places with the best views of the city. The girl happily accepts this offer and agrees. The couple stands side by side, holding onto the fence and looking down. An incredibly beautiful view opens up before them. The city sparkles with thousands of lights, flickering and playing with colors under their gaze. The girl stood there as if spellbound, her eyes fixed on the view. There was hesitation in her voice as she admitted that she found it hard to believe she had tried to ruin it. But before she could finish, she straightened up. In fact, she found it hard to imagine how she could have missed such amazing beauty. The guy, noticing a pause in the girl's conversation for the first time, turns his attention to her and is surprised by her strange behavior, sinking even deeper into his thoughts. He begins to understand that he is more concerned not with what she says, but with the mysterious aura of this girl. A dark haze extends from the girl, which the boy notices, and it scares him greatly. Noticing this, Kanata decides to ask the girl, who is still admiring the view, if she is human. The question causes the beauty to suddenly smile broadly, as if hiding a treacherous secret. She grips her hand tightly on the fence. The girl exclaims indignantly that some artifact that a subordinate gave her was supposed to disguise her as a human, and it's just a straw hat, they say. Not understanding what is happening, Kanata asks what this girl means. His companion suddenly bursts into loud laughter, crosses her arms over her stomach and arches her back. At the same time, she admits that she did not expect the guy to open her up so quickly and notice that she is not human, and suggests that this is even for the best. Having guessed everything, Kanata exclaims and wonders if this girl is really telling the truth, and in response hears confirmation and a compliment about his good intuition. The girl, carefully examining the boy, comes to the conclusion: since there are no people around and no traces of tracking magic are visible, there is no point in hiding anymore. The girl, patiently gritting her teeth, removes the ring from her finger. She decides to reveal her true nature. This is a kind of gratitude to Kanata for his attentiveness. The guy does not have time to say a word when everything around is illuminated by a bright flash of light, and a strong stream of wind rises from the girl. This is the beginning of her transformation, and it sweeps everything in its path to the ground. Feeling strong pressure, the guy carefully looks at the barely visible silhouette of his ex-girlfriend. Now she is no longer human. Her appearance resembles the demon he recently met. In an instant, the flash of light, the gusts of wind, and the strong pressure subsided, and at the same time, the girl's hat flew off her head. She decided to introduce herself again. A demoness appeared before Kanata. She was dressed in a revealing, even too revealing costume, and introduced herself as Shrausa, an ordinary modest demoness. Swallowing a thick layer of saliva and showing no emotion on his face, the boy finally said his name, Kanata. Shrausa suggested they address each other as you, and Kanata agreed without further ado. Suddenly, the girl snapped her fingers, and in that instant, she and the boy found themselves in a black, empty space. There was nothing around, and they could only see each other. Reaching for the rope, Shrausa noticed that their connection with the outside world had been severed. Now no one would be able to see them. Surprised, the boy stood up, crossed his arms over his chest, and confidently said that he had never heard of such magic. The protagonist reflects. Magic can always be impressive, and he should have prepared better before starting his training. Meanwhile, Shrausa turns to Kanata and asks what he thinks about demons, looking at him intently. The young man thinks. He crosses his arms over his chest and looks up, remembering that he has been asked this question before. The young man turns to the demoness and asks if she really cares about his opinion, since Kanata believes that all demons are the same. This answer surprises the girl quite a bit. The young man continues to say that humans and demons have been at war with each other since ancient times. However, it would be much better if everyone learned to live in peace and understanding. He believes that if one of the demon friends dies during the war, the others will miss him, just like humans do. Shrausa confirms the main character's words, because demons actually cry when they lose a friend. Meanwhile, the girl mentally notes that the guy is quite insightful. When the demoness asked Kanata if she was wrong about the boy's truly insanely powerful source of mana, it was as if she was looking right through him. The hero remembers a recent acquaintance, the demon who brought Aguila, and suddenly realizes Shrausa speaks the same way as that demon. The girl confesses that demons can see waves of mana. She notes that the boy has a much larger mana reserve than her own, and she never expected to meet someone like him in the city. Her words touch Kanata, and although he tries not to show his emotions, in his heart he wonders, how superior is he to the others? With another snap of her fingers, Shrausa brings them back to the human world. The girl admits that it is difficult for her to determine how much inner strength and endurance her boyfriend has, simply because she does not see the limits of his capabilities. Noticing something interesting, the girl smiled and covered her mouth with her hand. She understood something important for herself, which now made sense to her. Kanata didn't quite understand what Shrausa was talking about. She didn't even notice when the girl had time to change her clothes. The demoness advised her not to pay attention to it, because sometimes she had a habit of talking to herself. Strauss firmly takes the boy's hand and asks if he shares her opinion. Humans and demons should walk together, holding hands, just as they are both now warmed by the sun's rays. Kanata agrees with his interlocutor, noting that this path is indeed not easy, but he is convinced that together they will succeed. Shrausa smiled, looking at the boy, and noted that their plan still sounded quite promising. Kanata, not letting go of the demonetist's hand, notices that her palms are a little cool, but overall, they feel no different to the touch than ordinary human hands. Inadvertently, the boy tells the girl that she has a boyfriend who calls himself a certain Chai Shin, and that he shares the same opinion. But Kanata insists. Haishin longs for peace between humans and demons, and our hero sincerely hopes that one day such harmony will be achieved. However, his interlocutor only mocks these naive words. The boy was surprised by Strauss's reaction, who was still laughing. He began to worry and wondered if he had said something strange. The demoness couldn't hold back her laughter and, laughing to the point of tears, apologized to Kanata for her reaction, admitting that she was actually a big fan of Hyoshin. Hanging on the fence, Schrausser mentions the streamer and says that Kanata is absolutely right. Geshon did say bad things, but perhaps it was thanks to his words that she was able to change. With his arms spread wide, the boy asks the girl if Gaisien is known among them. Schrausser nods in response, confirming that he is indeed popular, although some stubborn elders do not like him. The demoness adds that the demon lord has already dealt with those who were against him. Kanata is happy about this news. However, it seems to him that besides popularity, Schrausser has mentioned something that this boy should not know about. The young man, continuing the conversation, begins to ask about the land of demons. He is very curious about what it really is like. Maybe this place is similar to overseas countries in the human world. He was sincerely delighted by Kanata's curiosity. The girl ran up to him with quick steps and, not hiding her delight, invited him to visit them next time. Having unexpectedly encountered the boy, the enthusiastic demonists began to make plans for their journey to the demon world. But the boy did not share the girl's joy. Trying to keep his distance, he calmly replied that he would visit them when both of them had free time. Soon they said goodbye, promising to meet again, and the strange exit rope began to come to an end. Schrausser disappeared as if through a portal, and no one in the human world had any idea of the demon lord's true name, so Kanata had no way of knowing who Schrausser really was. After his usual stream, Kanata decided to end it a little early this time. As a farewell, he advised his viewers to go to bed early sometimes too. Making himself more comfortable in bed, Kanata sighed and admitted to himself that he was tired of being a city guide. After that, he wished good night to the emptiness, knowing full well that there was no one else in the room except him. Soon the boy fell asleep. However, as mentioned earlier, Canada's strange weekend was coming to an end. In Haitian's room, a crow lurked under the ceiling, watching the sleeping young man with an ominous laugh. Kanata was just thinking that the weekend was coming to an end. A few days ago, Raven met his new client, a man in a hooded light-colored sweater waiting for him in a dark alley. Standing in a closed position, the man has his arms crossed over his chest. Crook turns to the man in the sweatshirt and asks why he killed. A familiar face peeks out from under the hood. The same brawling aristocrat with the arrogant smile who once teased Can. Due to public ridicule, as well as the arrest of Princess Mary in Canada, he was forced to return home, from where he was deported. The nobleman stuck a sheet of paper with a portrait of Kanata drawn from memory on the table, and carefully studied the information about his new victim. The killer came to the conclusion that the boy was an ordinary resident of the royal capital. He had neither nobility nor any adventurous merit behind him. This should be an easy task for Raven. The client, writhing in rage, bursts into a scream. He demands that Katana answer for humiliating him in front of everyone. Raven watches this scene and immediately guesses. The client has truly been humiliated. Pulling his hood even lower over his face, the mercenary agrees to take on the job. He adds that you definitely wouldn't envy the enemy of this customer. Relieved to hear that Raven has accepted his offer, the aristocrat sighs happily and calls out after the missing assassin who is counting on him. Smiling ominously, the nobleman understands. The one who humiliated him will certainly pay for it and will not escape punishment. Fascinatedly watching the city from a height, the killer is immersed in memories of how much time has passed since he was last in the capital. Suddenly and swiftly, like lightning, the Raven jumps over the fence and in one motion descends from the observation deck. As soon as she landed and took off her disguise, Raven became an ordinary girl again. No one even noticed her strange behavior, so she decided to learn more about her new target first. After an hour of light observation, it became known that Kanana bought bread at a women's store, saved a guy's sister from scammers, and helped a student who protected a woman from a bully. For the mercenary, the man she is tasked with killing seems like a good person. This worries her, as she cannot refuse the assignment and must see the case through to the end. The girl consoles herself with the thought that she is, after all, a raven, which means she simply has no other choice. Voices are heard on the street. One man tries to convince everyone that there is nothing criminal about selling illegal substances, but another abruptly interrupts him and orders him to be quiet. The people who were talking turned out to be a crow and a criminal, from whom the girl tried in vain to find out something. Not receiving the necessary information, she killed the man without hesitation. Then voices were heard around the corner. The killer notices that the loudspeakers all over the street are actually a boy and a girl, persistently asking each other to leave, holding hands. Raven watches the action, lost in her own thoughts. She thinks, even for those who have committed terrible crimes like her, life on the other side of the screen gives her a reason to stay here. This girl, like many others, often listens to Haitian. He is really important to her. Raven is a girl about the same age as the gentleman himself. She found out about him quite by accident, simply hearing about him from passers-by. The mercenary imagines herself in the place of Gishian's beloved, as she too hides her true nature under the guise of a raven, just like her master. She perceives this as yet another of the many similarities between them, which only convinces her of the special bond that unites them. She accidentally came across this streamer's live broadcasts, where he touched on interesting topics, for example, talking about decent work. The girl never thought she would like it so much. Out of happiness and tenderness towards Haitian, Raven often ignored the new orders, instead eagerly waiting for the broadcast to end. She completely succumbed to the master's influence. During her broadcast, Haishin receives a letter about the income of certain people from murders. The sender wants to know the opinion of the streamer, who has heard something about this topic. The story centers on a girl who simply makes a living working as an assassin. Sitting on the roof of a house and listening to the radio broadcast, the girl notices that Hexian's listeners are well aware of criminal earnings. She is convinced that they should be eliminated. When the girl hears from the streamer that the killers are a little scary, her face involuntarily expresses surprise. Raven thought about how people feared and despised assassins. Even their clients were wary. At the same time, mercenaries were seen as simply convenient executors for shady dealings. Raven knew what she was doing was wrong, but she still couldn't stop. Reading the comments of one supporter who has no opinion of his own, Haitian notes that this activity remains a crime and it must be difficult to view murderers positively. Stunned by these words, the girl listened attentively as the man continued to explain that, despite all the difficulties, he still found this work fascinating. But upon hearing Haishin's approval of her work, the girl cannot hide her joy. In delight, she even subconsciously swallows saliva and admits that she not only admires this man, but also sincerely loves him. Her faith in other people's words, especially the words of the streamer, is so great that she trusts people too easily. Coming back from her thoughts, Raven realizes that she has been dreaming too much. Meanwhile, the killer stands in front of his victim's house and stares intently at the window, behind which the light is on. She realizes that the hero should not have left the window open. With one leap, skipping through the open window, Raven found herself in the room and immediately noticed a tired boy sitting at the table, stretching. The killer quietly sneaks up on his victim from behind. Drawing his sword, he silently apologizes to Kanata. Swinging her sword and bidding farewell to Kanata, allowing him to hate his killer in another world, Raven suddenly stops, almost killing the boy. After her words about the time having come, the flow of events began. Raven was stunned and pondered the stranger's words while the killer twisted the sword in his hands, wondering if the victim could be somehow related to his master. Suddenly, Kanata hurried to close the window so that no one outside would hear his scream, and at that moment the crow instantly flew up to the very ceiling to remain unnoticed, leaving behind only its shadow reflections. Watching the beginning of the stream, the yandere killer, relying on his sharp intuition, which ordinary people do not have, understands Kanata and Haishin are one and the same person. Overwhelmed with excitement and not expecting such an encounter, Yander crouched in a corner under the ceiling, thinking that he had just dreamed it all. Meanwhile, against the backdrop of the rope, he entertained the people on the stream, asking them the usual questions and maintaining an interesting atmosphere. Suddenly, from a light, almost imperceptible movement that betrayed the girl, overwhelmed with happy emotions from what she had heard, the raven mask unexpectedly falls from her face. The skill of a professional killer saves her. She manages to grab the mask with her teeth, which is about to fall off because no gentleman should see her. Neither an accidental nosebleed nor tears of joy should give the girl away. At this time, the streamer is talking to the audience about the dishes they can recommend to her. At this moment, the sinister laughter of a nobleman comes from some unfamiliar house. Enjoying the gossip about the crow's cruelty, he believes that the murderer is making the peasant scream in pain right now. At this very moment, Raven was enjoying the world's first open stream, mentally exclaiming that the gentleman who was voicing the comments from the nameless princess was simply unbeatable. After the broadcast ends, Kanata stretches out on his bed and sighs sweetly, feeling tired from his role as a guide. He quietly wishes the void good night, not even suspecting that someone might be nearby. After waiting for this boy to fall asleep, Yandere silently jumped from the ceiling, so skillfully that she didn't wake Hieshin and remained unnoticed. Raven never left Kanata's room, watching him intently. She carefully followed his every breath, licking her lips in excitement while he slept peacefully, his hind legs missing. Even the most renowned assassin can get tired after spending too much time in the master's room. The girl dozed off, and saliva dripped from her mouth, right onto Kanata's face. Kanata gradually woke up, confused by the sudden sensation of water droplets on his face. When the raven noticed that Gaishin was about to wake up, he instantly jumped back and hid on the ceiling again. The boy began to grumble, thinking that water was flowing from the roof, and if that was really the case, he would have a hard time falling asleep again. Kanata, getting out from under the warm blanket, decided that since he was already awake, it was time to go to the restroom. When the boy started to get out of bed, he was seized by fear. Suddenly, he noticed a night guest who was sitting, laughing, right under the ceiling. Unable to cope with his distorted and sincere horror, the boy continued to stare at the girl, and then screamed at the top of his voice. Suddenly jumping out of bed, the boy quickly ran up to Yandere, pointed his finger at her, and shouted loudly, "Who is she? And what did she forget?" Even when she was spotted and the mission failed, Raven still jumped off the roof without hesitation. She was happy because Kanata had noticed her. The girl answered the boy's question with unwavering confidence, and it was felt in every word she said. The girl, trying to appear friendly and casual, dropped her things and said that she was pleased to meet Mr. Haishin. She gave the impression of an ordinary girl who did not arouse suspicion at all. Still screaming in fear, Katana yells at the girl not to even think that the boy would believe all her talk. From that day on, Kanata's streams were never the same, but of course, he didn't know anything about it then. The girl falls to her knees before the boy, begging him to listen to her and believe her, because she sincerely admires Kanata. The boy looks back at the crow in confusion, not quite understanding what to do next. The protagonist stands, nervously wiping away his sweat, convinced that the girl has already revealed his true identity. Suddenly, the girl raises her head, hearing a strange voice asking who she is. With a joyful smile, the stranger, who had unexpectedly entered someone else's house, introduced herself as the name of the world and jokingly added that sometimes they could also call her Crow. Kanata thoughtfully places his hand on his chin. His gaze glides to the mask lying nearby, then to the sword, and then stops at the smiling girl with a sweet appearance. The hero again asks Mira if she is really that legendary assassin. The boy's words only confirm this. The young man asks Mira why the legendary assassin came into his room and watched him sleep. The girl immediately starts making excuses, saying that she is a big fan of Heshine. But the hero understands that there is no point in asking further, so he continues to walk around the room in circles. The main character realizes that he doesn't know how to behave in such a situation. Mira asks if he's worried by chance, and after brief clarifications, she gets confirmation. Then, having learned that the reason for his worries is connected with her, the girl is even more surprised. Then the heroine says goodbye to her mentor and resolutely draws her sword from its scabbard. The young man is visibly worried and tries to stop her. Mira raises the point of her sword to her delicate neck and announces that she will retreat immediately. The young man raises his hand, asking her to stop. The nuclear fanatic doesn't hear Kanata. All her attention is focused on her own thoughts. She suddenly runs a sharp blade across her neck and hot, bright blood flows down her skin, trickling down drop by drop. The hero screams and presses a rag to the other person's neck, trying to stop the bleeding. In despair, he asks what happened to Mira, why she decided to take such a step. The girl quietly replies that she only created problems for the master. When Mira removed the bandage, which already had drops of bright red liquid on it, she looked sternly at him and said that if the boy only saw her as an obstacle, then she had no value as a living being. Kanata feels that he can't take it anymore, because in front of him stands a person who is truly capable of committing suicide. She has long since crossed the boundaries of an ordinary yandere or menharu. The main character wants to cry from powerlessness, choosing the right words. The young man says that the world is the way it is, and he wouldn't want to change anything. The boy reflects on how everything was wonderful and beautiful until one day that same crazy fan showed up on his doorstep. So, the hero asks the girl to at least not die and gives one of the most illogical reasons. If you cut off your head, it will be very difficult to deal with the blood. The girl asks if they can do it somewhere else. The protagonist desperately squeezes a glass of water, splashing it around. He doesn't know how to convey his thoughts to his admirer, so he squats down in front of her and calls her by name. Interrupting the conversation, Mira notes that only Canada now knows Crow's real name. The young man asks again if he will be killed now that he has learned the truth. If the girl instantly grabs the sword and decisively asks who it could be, she is ready to deal with the enemies immediately, while the guy is only now realizing how neglected everything is. The main character asks the girl to prove that she is really a crow. Mira thinks about how to do it. Suddenly an idea strikes her. She tells him that she is excellent at hiding her presence and immediately demonstrates it. And indeed, the young man doesn't even have time to blink an eye when the girl disappears into thin air. There is no trace of her anywhere. Only her voice echoes around. The young man looks around in confusion, says that he didn't feel any magic and doesn't understand where she went. Suddenly, a voice was heard nearby, Someone announced that he was very close, right in front of the owner. Kanata carefully reaches forward and bumps into something round in the middle of the room. After that, the girl reappears and with a smile notes that these are her natural round shapes. The protagonist awkwardly steps back from Mira, muttering an apology in a slightly confused tone. He awkwardly closes his eyes, apologizing for his inconvenience. But the yandere just smiles and assures him that everything is fine. The fan smiles and admits that the master's touch brings her true joy. Hearing this, the guy becomes even more embarrassed and feels awkward. Returning to the original topic of conversation, the guy wonders why Mira is in his room now. She begins to talk about her true intention, but the boy still can't imagine that people are capable of killing over trifles. However, this world has long been corrupted. Raven replies that what she told him earlier really made her happy. The hero asks again if the fan is really going to kill him, but she is not at all satisfied with the question. Exclaiming loudly, she firmly declares that she would never do it. To justify herself, the girl asks the protagonist not to worry, saying that she is not there to harm, but to protect. At the end of her story, she mentions who ordered this guy. The second day in the life of a stalker passed as usual. The girl watched from the shadows as the main character studied intently, and along the way she involuntarily remembered her true goal, to take the boy's life. She failed to complete her mission, but with a light and quick movement of her sword, she eliminated the client. After that, she continued to watch the young man and even followed him while he was broadcasting his streams. After telling his story, Kanata asks yandere not to kill people anymore, because it is not necessary at all. The young man considers the heroine to be an extremely reliable bodyguard, but leaving her around is still a bit scary. While he is thinking about this, the screen on his device suddenly flashes. He is immediately informed about this by the girl standing next to him. The guy doesn't miss the opportunity and decides to seize the moment. He reasons that perhaps the same emails he mentioned earlier might have already arrived. So he checks his device. A creepy inscription suddenly appears on the screen in front of the main character. He is called a serial killer, and he has no idea why this happened. The girl tries to look at the device's screen, but can't make out anything. Meanwhile, Haitian continues to read the letter, the lines of which indicate, "He will not be forgiven, his sins will remain with him, and no one predicted that he would do anything for the sake of fame." It takes an enormous amount of mana to transmit a voice over a long distance. No matter how much the guy, according to the commentator, conserves his own energy, it still won't be enough. He can't do it on his own. He'll need the help and mana of many other people. The author of this letter is convinced that Gaijin has taken many lives and made others suffer for the sake of fame. At the end of the letter is a dire warning. They are going to destroy him. But the young man is silent, because he has already understood. The terrible rumors have spread in just a few days. Meanwhile, Yandere notices the hero's things spread out on the bed. While the boy wanders in his thoughts, thinking that he is using his own mana to create streams, Mira approaches his bed, takes the protagonist's things, and carefully inhales their scent, trying to remember it forever. But still the raven is distracted and asks his master what happened, although his thoughts still return to his past life. Because such rumors never led to anything good, and famous people were often perceived very strangely because of them and given bizarre labels. The hero is confused. He could not have imagined that something like this would happen to him. Now he doesn't even know what to do next. The girl comes closer and carefully waits for his answer. What she did earlier hasn't gone unnoticed. Canada points at Yandere and asks what she was doing by his bed. However, Raven just brushes it off, saying he doesn't understand what she's talking about at all. Several girls were sitting on a statue, next to which was a sign. This was a monument to their teacher. A sound echoes from the plaque on the statue. The name Haitian resounds throughout the world, which here is called anorexia. One girl holds someone's body in her arms, and among those captivated by his ideas and beliefs, some even became obsessive listeners. Despite this, the unique streaming culture he created has spread to many people. Freeing the slaves. A young man stands before a girl below, at which point a truce is made with the demons. An old man shakes hands with the demons, sealing the deal. The death of the bandits brought real devastation. Amidst the chaos, someone screams loudly, trying to shout over the din. Words were heard about the need to get rid of discrimination on the basis of professional grounds, although it came at a cost, the fate of several girls. The blonde man held something important in his hands. The power that could change entire countries with just a word inevitably aroused the envy of many. And soon another man appeared. He also dreamed of becoming a streamer. A small country near Rogius, the Senti clan. Someone violently pushes another person down a flight of stairs. A girl in torn clothes falls to the ground and screams in pain. Somewhere nearby, someone shouts that there are not enough people. The guy shouts at the top of his voice that everyone around him is worthless. People on their knees beg for forgiveness and ask for mercy because they can't stand it anymore. A guy is sitting in a chair, holding something that looks like a phone, and asking someone why they bought it, and also insulting them with words. Someone addresses Rikba, calling him the owner. He turns around with a displeased look and asks what else they want from him. The old man standing before him says he understands. Mana is as important as blood. He explains that if he drains every drop of their mana, they will die. And then he will have to find new slaves. It will be even more expensive, because the old one's mana is already spent. So it is better to let them rest for a while. The man looks at the exhausted slaves lying on the floor and wonders if that's all. The servant replies that it was the last batch. He glares at them angrily and insults them, calling them scum because they bring him only pitiful crumbs. The girl is happy because she managed to achieve something. Meanwhile, the princess of this cursed kingdom has introduced new laws on slavery. Now it has become even more difficult than buying new shares. The man in armor locks the slaves behind bars and tells them to rest in their cells. Rikpei just dismissively says that the demand to treat these scum like humans is simply ridiculous. Suddenly, the young man remembers something and wonders if they managed to capture an adventurer of the rank of sulfur monosulfide yesterday. The adventurer, almost without clothes, rests in the healing water, gaining strength after a difficult journey. Rick raises a finger in the direction of this place and asks if they should use it. The old man carefully reviews the documents and sighs. The resource for speech will last only 5 minutes. The guy looks at his phone anxiously and notices that there are only 5 minutes left. He asks in surprise how the Haitian managed to do this, how much mana he has, and then he starts to guess something. The guy understands and realizes that he is left alone. He doesn't have enough strength to last the whole night. He calls him names and wonders how many lives Haishin took for the sake of the broadcast. Because of this, false rumors about him began to spread. The man confidently points his finger at the old man and the group of armed men, ordering them to obey his orders. He tells them to secretly spread rumors about the bloody streamer. Everyone agrees without hesitation. Rick Bay clenches his fist tightly with a smile and announces that now they have reached the very core. All his sins will come to light, and now he will inevitably be dragged to hell. The guy asks to give him some mana for a 5-minute broadcast, and then he promises to do it tomorrow at the end of his stream. Today, the boy looks at his phone in confusion, trying to figure out what happened. The guy presses the button on his phone. The girl next to him gets angry and asks if he's really going to leave it like that. The guy sitting at the computer thinks about it and says that he doesn't like it himself, but he wants to wait and see where it all leads. The girl clenched her fists and exclaimed indignantly that this was unforgivable. She didn't want him to be slandered. The main character, watching her, wondered why she was behaving as if it was completely normal to be with him, and when she would finally return home. The girl puts on her glasses and says that if the guy doesn't want to get his hands dirty, then maybe she should do some educational work with them. The protagonist strictly forbids killing and asks where she got the glasses from. She imagines herself using a sword to extract organs from a man and offers to at least sell them for organs. The man angrily replies that this is not allowed. The main character remembers the sad blonde girl and reflects on how he used to be sure that all his fans were good people. But over time, he realized that this was not the case at all. The guy opens the door and leaves the room, saying he needs to calm down. He decides to go for a walk. The girl answers and says she will go with him. The main character agreed, but asked the girl to act in a way that no one would notice her. She replied with a laugh that it was obvious. Did he really think she was someone careless? And the guy just silently looked away, not giving any answer. The girl clenched her fists, and tears glistened in her eyes. She painfully asked the boy if he thought she was a stalker. She added excitedly that she was not like that at all. The moon floods the street with its bright light. The protagonist stretches his arms, enjoying the moment, and remarks that it is truly an incredibly pleasant feeling. Suddenly his cell phone rang loudly. He looked at the screen in surprise. A voice was heard in the receiver, confessing that he was very happy with Kesha's antics. The protagonist and the girl next to him stare at the phone in horror. Rick Pei reports that some of the people present have probably heard about this. But does anyone know about all the atrocities committed by Hyoshin? A voice on the phone warns them that in 5 minutes the moment will come when he will finally reveal the whole truth to them. Several people listen in amazement to what Rick says on the live broadcast. They can't believe he really killed so many people. Several other people also look at the phone, listening in surprise to everything being said. They begin to whisper, agreeing that maybe he really is right. The 3 girls holding their phones froze in shock. They listened intently to Rick B's words and couldn't believe what they were hearing. Is this really that serious? It just can't be. A girl with pointed ears was sitting at the computer and typing something diligently on the keyboard. At that moment, someone exclaimed in surprise, "How could he do such a thing?" The upset girl tore the pillow in half and feathers fell out of it. After that, she grabbed a cross and in one motion stabbed the phone with it. Another angry girl shows her middle finger and shouts that he would never do anything like that, raising her hand up. The protagonist turned to Mira, who was silently walking ahead. Mira suddenly turned and looked at him with confusion, because she herself was barely holding back her emotions. If Gaishin hadn't been there, she would have probably already blown everything around within a 5-meter radius. Haitian makes a request to her, asking if she can grant him one wish. The protagonist, meanwhile, thinks that Rickbus deliberately stepped on the tiger's tail. One girl stands with the ball in her hands. The other confidently walks alongside, carrying a flag with a microphone on it. This is a mode of support for the Haitian detachment. But the clock is already 4. Someone announces the topic of today's lecture. The main character sits on a bench and thinks about what to do now. In front of him, 2 guys say goodbye to each other. He looked at the bench across from him, where one girl was pointing at her phone in horror and asking if it was really true that he was killing people, while another couldn't believe that so much mana could be contained in one person. Haitian quickly realized that the guy's broadcast had caused a real sensation. He recalls sitting at his computer and being asked if he could start streaming and asked to show him how. Many people were curious about how his broadcast worked. The main character believed that he was doing it simply because he could. At least that was the answer he gave himself. In front of him in this darkness appears the silhouette of a girl with wings who reaches out to him. He talks about the endless flow of mana he received with his reincarnation. In his heart, he doubts that there is anyone else in this world with the same abilities. The protagonist remembers reaching out his hand and says that now he can use high-level magic over and over again without even worrying about his strength. Some monster had grabbed him with its tentacles. The feeling was disgusting. However, he was immune to enemies that emitted magical energy. He jokes that if he relaxes even a little, he will inadvertently overtake everyone else. But he is the only one of his kind, so no one will believe him. It is better to keep this power a secret. The main thing is to live calmly and take your time while you can restrain yourself. The main character sits on the bed in his house and thinks. It seems that his rival is still only plotting some plots in his head, so perhaps they have not yet reached a threatening scale. Unexpectedly for the boy, the world he sees before him apologizes for making him wait. The boy is frightened by the girl's appearance. The girl looked at the guy with curiosity and asked if he was okay. The main character answered in the affirmative, and he himself mentally noted that she really liked sneaking up on him unnoticed. Mira hands him some papers and asks him to take them. She says she did everything in her power to gather the necessary information. The smiling girl honestly admits that she had to resort to force, but if it's his order, she's ready to do whatever he wants. The guy smiles, accepts the papers, and thanks the girl, but at the same time asks her not to hit people anymore. Suddenly, the girl lies on her side on the bed. The main character looks at her in surprise, and the mirror cries, and in his mind cannot believe that a murderer like her has received gratitude personally from Mr. Gizian. The girl feels sick, and she slowly loses consciousness. She looks at the girl carefully and wonders if she is not so tired that she can immediately fall asleep. Then one can consider her duty well done. At this moment, the man takes the paper she brought and examines it carefully. Noticing the map in front of him, the boy realizes that all this is happening in a small country somewhere in the southwest. It seems that some aristocrat from a distant province is behind this. Rick Boss stands in front of his men with an angry face. The protagonist wonders if some kind of company has formed here that is jealous of Haitian. It seems that this group has already become a real organization. The guy understands that things are bad. The protagonist looks out at the world, immersed in sleep, and notes to himself, Raven truly lives up to her reputation. She managed to gather such detailed information. At this moment, the girl opens her eyes. Finally, the girl wakes up, rubs her eyes, and says she can go find out more if she needs to. Haitian wonders if she really agrees to that. Mira asks to confide in her and suddenly disappears, surprising the protagonist. He is surprised at how quickly she managed to find out everything she needed to know. The protagonist and Mira are standing outside in the open air. She asks him again about her request, and the guy confidently agrees. Haitian shows her his phone and says he wants to learn more about this streamer, so he asks her to use her connections and find out if it's possible. The main character notices that it has become easier for her to move around, and, approaching the guy, asks him to share this with her. Haitian begins to study the documents. Rumors spread that he is gaining the trust of the former slaves by pretending to be their protector, but in reality, He is taking all their magical power for himself. The angry man throws a stack of papers on the table and begins to insult the streamer. As he leaves the room, he wonders more and more. What if those who support him simply fell under someone's influence? The protagonist walks down the street, lost in thoughts that the only way to stop his terrible deeds is to end his own existence as soon as possible. Suddenly, he slams his fist hard into the wall. At that moment, it becomes clear to him. This guy is not going to stop. And not only he himself, but everyone listening has already understood this. Two girls hold the third one tightly, who confidently steps forward with an axe in her hands. They ask Kana to stop and not get excited, because they don't even know who is in front of them. In this tense atmosphere, the main character understands that even now there are those who believe all these rumors. He notices that there are already a lot of people here. An angry girl is standing next to him, and a fresh hole is showing in the wall. The two girls opposite realize it's her again, and once again she destroys the castle in a fit of anger, and this means new repair costs. The main character is walking down the street. Everything is clear to him. The lies have already reached him alive. People behind him are whispering, discussing what they said about him. Haitian thinks he wouldn't say it hurts him much, but he understands perfectly well that if he leaves her alone, the problem won't go away. The main character sits and thinks. He needs to find a simple way to resolve this misunderstanding, because his words alone are not enough for this. Finally, it dawns on Haitian. During the live broadcast, he can simply remove his hands. He understands that if he takes advantage of this, he will be helped by simulating the school entrance exam. The girl stands next to the sphere. The boy realizes that this is the sphere they touched during the exam, and it is used to measure their magical potential. It is a sphere for measuring mana. He realizes that he really needs one of these. But the man suddenly notices this orb on his phone. He realizes that if he activates the orb during a live broadcast, it will be undeniable proof that he is using his own power. The main character has heard that it is quite expensive, and does not believe that the teachers would lend the artifact to an ordinary student. Meanwhile, two girls notice a boy sitting on a bench. One girl leaves a crack in the wall with her punch. She thinks she understands Kanata, because he also constantly thinks about that fake streamer. The second girl also leaves her mark on the wall and realizes that Kanata, just like her, dreams of cleansing this world of sinners. Both girls approach Kanata and address him by name. The protagonist does not hide his surprise. He definitely did not expect them to appear like this. The main character gets up from the bench and looks closely at the girls, realizing that they are the ones in front of him, Princess Maria and Alphen. The girl stands silently in front of the guy, and he looks at them with a questioning look in his eyes. The girls understand, a little more, and if they don't restrain themselves, they will completely lose control of themselves. The main character was about to ask what happened, but one of the girls interrupted him, laughed merrily, and said that there was no point in continuing. She understood everything anyway. The girl remembers all the moments spent with the main character and says that he will always come to the aid of those in need. He can be trusted because he is a truly reliable person. She reaches out to him and says, now in such difficult times they are ready to share their strength with him. Why not share the burden with them? There are two huge houses. The girl confesses. It just so happens that they were born into a world where they have power and influence. However, these abilities should be used to help those in need, so she asks the guy to trust them. The protagonist stops, ponders. After weighing everything, he comes to the conclusion. These two can still be trusted. Haitian clenches his fist. He makes a request to them, asking if they would mind helping him. Suddenly, the main character dares to reveal the truth to the two girls and confesses to them that he is the very Haikin. The girls look at the protagonist in confusion when he admits that he is actually a Haishin. The main character realizes that he confessed too suddenly, and his friends are taken aback. No matter how close they are, such a confession came as a real surprise to them. Haitian realizes that it's not a fact that he's believed. One of the girls apologizes to him. One girl freezes in place in surprise, while the other calmly admits that she has known about it for a long time. The protagonist, shocked, asks her if it's a joke. He asks her how long she's known about it. She replies, since their first meeting. Does he remember when he had a small scratch on his arm? The girl reminds him that right after that he showed his hands right by the stream. Now Haishin finally understands what's going on. The second girl freezes in horror before them, suddenly realizing that Mr. Haishin was right next to her the whole time. Princess Mary stands, unable to utter a word, and realizes that her premonition was correct. And the main character looks at the girl with disbelief, not believing what he saw. Suddenly, Maria raises her hands and admits that she also knew the secret. The protagonist immediately asks how she found out about it. Maria raises her finger and tells him that she recognized him by his accent. She remembered him that way. It was easy. The main character asks if it turns out he gave himself away. He praises the girls for keeping this secret, says they are good, and the girls agree with the guy. All three of them stare at each other in silence for a moment. Then one of the girls approaches the protagonist and tenderly takes his hands. The girl tells him that even though they know the truth, they are still his supporters. She addresses him as Haitian, but corrects him about the rope. The girl leans in and assures him that they would never set him up like that. The girl understands. If they don't do this, they won't be able to call themselves real fans. The main character turns to Alphonse. Maria approached them and told the main character that Alfana was right. They all really wanted to continue listening to his voice. Both girls are already taking the guy by the hand. Maria shares with him. She's looking forward to those broadcasts where he always honestly expresses his opinion and is not afraid to say what he thinks. Canada looks at her in surprise. Maria suddenly expressed her displeasure when she heard the word princess. She suddenly shouted at the main character to stop addressing her that way, and to simply call her Alfana. Maria asked to stop adhering to formal addresses. The girl started shaking Kanata and said that there was no need to address her by her title now. The protagonist replied that he already understood everything. Alfana grabs Maria's hand, trying to pull her away, and with relief asks her to stop the protagonist's enlargement. Alfina informs the main character that they are on his side. Maria straightens her hair and adds with dignity. In front of him is not just anyone, but a real princess and saint. She invites him not to be shy, to voice any wish, and they will fulfill it. The main character thinks about their words. The girl takes the boy's hands again. He realizes with surprise that these two, even after learning the whole truth about him, have not told anyone and kept his secret. The main character understands that it has long been obvious to everyone that he can be relied on. But he wonders to himself, what's wrong with him? Kanata notices that something strange is happening to her that hasn't happened before. This feeling even scares her a little, although maybe it's just her imagination. He looks at both girls and wonders how they have become so close to him, and then directly meets their gazes. The protagonist looks back and wonders what will happen if someone notices or hears him. Suddenly, Kanata asks everyone to stop and asks what's going on. The girl thoughtfully wonders if he's surprised because there's no one around. The protagonist wonders how she figured that out. The girl confesses that before they started talking, she had cast a spell that isolated her from others. Judging by the look on the interlocutor's face, he also didn't want anyone else to be able to overhear them. The main character thanks the girl, which surprises the other girl. But the guy immediately suggests getting down to business. The boy tells the girls that he wants to discuss the rumors surrounding Haishin. The girls are sure it's all a conspiracy. Maria says she asked her mom and dad to investigate the rumors. Thanks to a mysterious assistant, they've already managed to find out where they're coming from, so the investigation is complete. The hero thought about this assistant and then remembered Mira's words, who had boasted that she worked quickly. He couldn't believe it himself. This couldn't be happening. There are a lot of documents on the table. The man is informed that he is accused of mass murder, although such crimes are not usually recorded in their country. However, what he has done requires a huge amount of mana, and an ordinary person would not be able to do it. The girl says that first her parents, and later the rulers of all countries, realized that he possessed more mana than any other creature in this world. She says he uses an unknown device to create mana, and that's how he manages to keep the flow going. The main character realizes that she has hit the nail on the head. The girl says that she won't even ask if it's true, because a fan like her is also capable of doing something like that. She hugs him from behind and says, actually, even if he doesn't ask for help, many of his followers have already started doing something to end this. His name has now gained such weight that even ordinary people are supporting him. She speaks on behalf of many people and even demons, and confidently declares, among her supporters there are enough who will not let him be offended. But the main character doesn't want anyone else to solve his problems. The guy clenches his fist and stubbornly says that he wants to prove his innocence on his own. The guy confesses to Alfana and Maria that he can't do it without their support. They are the ones he trusts the most. After these words of the main character, the girls were so surprised that they stepped back from surprise. Both fall back to the ground. The protagonist waves his hand awkwardly and thoughtfully recalls everything that just happened. The young man begins to tell about his plan. The girls stand up and tune in to listen attentively to him, and he casts a questioning look at them. He asks if the girls remember the ball they touched when they first entered the academy. They both agree that it is truly valuable, hidden deep inside the school and securely locked away. Canada, sitting on a bench, thoughtfully says that this ball will help him solve the problem. At this moment, both girls come closer to the main character. Maria says that the princess will force them to give him permission, and Alana adds that the saint can also get this permission. The girls assure the guy that no matter what the situation is, they will still take responsibility. The guy, a little embarrassed, replies that they are getting too close. He is not yet in order. The guy thanks everyone for their sincere desire to help, but asks to step back a bit. Then Haishin and the community join forces to stop all the rumors. But will these events change much? Soon they will learn everything about Haishin's life. The main character shares that his studies are over for today, and now he needs to prepare a lot for tomorrow. It's already 4 in the afternoon. The guy announces that today's broadcast is cancelled, and instead he will prepare for tomorrow's broadcast. The girls listen with smiles on their faces. The main character imagines himself cancelling the broadcast on his computer and thanks the girls for agreeing to help him. The girls immediately realize that there will be no broadcast today. Canada returns and suggests starting their plan at 6 o'clock in the very place where they just discussed everything. Maria smiles at the stranger and says they understand him, and Alana nods in agreement. It's already dark outside when someone knocks on the door. Alana opens it, and a girl stands in front of her on the threshold. This girl turns out to be Maria. She addresses Alana by her first name. Alana asks Maria what happened. She asks the girl if she wants to talk about Mr. Kanata. Suddenly, the girl happily agrees and puts her hands on Alfani's shoulders. The girl trembles with annoyance and asks if he is really Mr. Aishin. Alfina turns to Maria, wondering in surprise if she really didn't know anything about it. Alfina asks Maria to stop shaking her and demands that she calm down first, but Maria admits that she cannot control her emotions. Suddenly, the girl rushes to the window. She asks how she can stay calm. Alfina watches her carefully. Maria jumps out the window, smashing it to pieces. She shouts happily that her idol is in the same class as her. Alfina angrily shouts for Maria to stop destroying her room. Eventually, the window is restored to its original state by magic. In the room, there is a table with various objects spread out on it. Alfina looks at Maria with delight, and she asks her not to misinterpret everything. She explains that her confidence is not entirely true. She just noticed something too. The girl curls her fingers and, a little confused, admits that his way of speaking reminded her of Haitian. Alfina asks the girl to stop muttering to herself, because now she has a great opportunity to use these meetings to make Kana fall in love with her. The girl thinks about her words. Maria thought for a moment, then said Kanat and Heshin's names out loud. She asked which name she would prefer to call him. Alfina was surprised by such a sudden change in mood. Maria, meanwhile, asks to wait a bit. She is already racking her brains over what to call him. She asks if this means they're almost married. Alfina replies that her friend has come to some strange conclusion again. Maria happily asks when she can start preparing for the wedding ceremony. She understands that now she has many pleasant worries waiting for her. In her thoughts, Alfana gets angry and shouts that she will become Kana's bride. But in reality, she just laughs and tells Maria that she's joking again. The girl understands that Maria will simply go crazy with joy now, so it's better to warn her right away, before she completely loses her mind and decides to use her princess abilities on him. Alfana raises her finger and, turning to her friend, asks if she can listen to her. The girl looks at her friend in surprise, not understanding what exactly she wants to say. Suddenly, Alfana grabs her friend Maria by the nose and lips, squeezing them tightly with her fingers, and abruptly pulls her back. Maria screams loudly in surprise. Alfana looks down at the girl sternly and reminds her that while he is at school, to everyone he is Mr. Kanata, not Mr. Haishin. She asks her not to forget that. She says that if she does something that causes him to suffer, she won't forgive herself, even though they are friends. Maria touches the sore spot on her face and suddenly realizes what Alfiana's face is. She realizes with surprise that she hasn't seen him since. She had seen a face like that before, when she had planted explosives instead of an alarm clock. There were only 5 of them when her face took on an almost identical expression, in the flames of burns. Little Alfada, holding a board in her hands, asks if she wants to see the underworld. Alfina asks Maria to think things over carefully, because even when it's over, only the 2 of them will know who he really is. She smiles slyly and explains to him that, in other words, they are ahead of all the fans. From now on, they can help him directly. Maria is surprised by her friend's statement. Maria mentions all 4 girls who know Haishin's true identity, and notes that there are not many of them, at least for now. The girl with the horns sits at the computer, tears rolling down her cheeks. She wonders, will there be a stream today? Maria, surprised, agrees with Alfana. She is indeed right. Alfana is going to share important news with you. She explains that this is how they will try to support him from the shadows, so that no one in the world will know about it. Maria carefully removes the bandage from her head. Alana imagined a statue of Gaishin standing behind her and reminded everyone that it was their duty as fans, who knew the truth, to act. Maria joined in the conversation, confessing that she was also a big fan of Mr. Gaishin. Maria ponders their debts. Once these two were called yanderes, but now it turns out that was a mistake. Now it's not just a bunch of crazy fans. There's someone's phone on the table. Alana shakes Maria's hand and tells her that they are now allies. She suggests that they support Canada together. Maria readily agrees as they are friends. Maria and Alana, like a princess and a saint, have always supported each other, and now they join forces again to help the same important person. But the girl continues to stand. With her arms folded, she silently demonstrates the amazing friendship that has arisen between these two young girls. A tiger suddenly appears behind Alana. She is sure that now she will definitely become the first for Mr. Canada. And at the same moment a dragon appears behind Maria. The girl hopes that she will be the favorite of Canada. Maria realizes that she was the first to discover Mr. Heighton's true identity. She is sure that she saw his special talent before anyone else. The aura of the lion opposes the aura of the dragon. In reality, these two girls remain ordinary yasundere. Alana asks Maria if she's as big a fan as she is. The girl gently smooths her hair and replies with a smile that they seem to be very similar to her. Alana holds the phone in her hands and reminds everyone that tonight is the night before their revolution. Since Mr. Kanata is busy and there will be no broadcast, she suggests using archive recordings to boost morale tomorrow. She says that fortunately there will be no classes tomorrow. But cheering yourself up just for the sake of it is not very good. Maria praises Alana for such a great idea. Maria, with a sly smile, asked her friend which broadcasts had still been saved. Alana, with the same calm smile, tells Maria that it's just questions and answers, and does so very confidently. A voice suddenly comes from the phone on the table, asking the girls if they both want to become his, and then starts laughing. The girl begins to rejoice to the fullest. One of them jumps into her arms. They loudly exclaim to Mr. Heishin that they now belong to him. From now on, they had no need to hide or restrain anything, and wild screams could be heard in the silence of the night. After all, their love for hygiene knew no bounds. At about the same time, both girls approach the protagonist, and he informs them that tomorrow night they will begin their plan right here. The main character returns home and admits to himself that although he has to sort out this misunderstanding, he still can't wait for tomorrow's special broadcast. Kanata closes the door and realizes that he needs to prepare for everything first. The main character realizes that it's too late to change anything. He cautiously peeks around the corner and begins to observe everything that is happening. The boy notices a man who is not letting any of the students out at this late hour. He realizes that, as an ordinary student, he is unlikely to be able to convince this guard to let him in. The protagonist smiles dreamily, because he finally guesses who is capable of helping him right now. As soon as the guy says the name of the world, she instantly appears in front of him and asks if he was the one calling her. The girl picks up the protagonist and starts jumping quickly across the rooftops. The protagonist asks how long she has been here. The girl smiles and replies that she just arrived. They jump over a few more buildings, and then a girl in a mask and hoodie asks Kanaga why he needed to show up in the capital in the middle of the night. The protagonist tells her that he is looking for someone who could help him. Mira was standing on the roof, staring into the distance. At that moment, Kana approached the main character and suggested not to waste time, because she was waiting for him. However, Kana calmly replied to the girl that he had not come here for that at all. The man opens a bag full of money in front of her and says he is willing to pay any amount. He urgently needs clothes made, so he asks if she could introduce him to someone who does. At first, Kana thinks about it, and then tells the boy that she will draw a map now. She calms the protagonist and asks him not to worry. The girl leans towards the protagonist and whispers quietly that they will not speak again. The guy gratefully thanks her. The main character has a serious conversation with a bald man. After that, Mira wonders where they should go next. In response, she hears, "Let's go to the gun shop." So they rush through the streets of the capital, because there is only an hour left until dawn. Canada raises his head, looking around in confusion, wondering if this is the location they were supposed to meet at. The protagonist looks at the huge castle and wonders in surprise if they can really use such a villa for streaming. The boy walks with a bag on his shoulders, realizing that everything was meant to be. He is filled with joy at having such support. Now it is time to prepare further. The main character admires himself in the mirror, dressed in luxurious new clothes, and mentally decides to definitely remember this tailor's workshop. The guy admires his new look and can't help but note that the tailors really did a great job. His phone is on a stick. He says he has everything set up and the equipment is ready. He just made the camera removable, so there's no need to redo anything now. Canada wonders if there are any remaining problems and stares at his reflection in the mirror. Suddenly there is a knock on his room door. He lets them in, turns around and sees a girl in front of him. Alana and Maria, dressed in luxurious clothes, stand before him. He needs to focus and prepare the girls mentally. Maria is worried and asks if this is really a good idea. Alana honestly admits that even knowing about the upcoming Trinity, she is still worried. The main character complains to her that no one is forcing her to take part in this. The girl in response, with a slight smile, says that they just want to help. When they are around, it is easier for people to believe that he is not an ordinary commoner. The conversation continues in the villa. The protagonist again seriously asks if he will really reveal his secret, and the girl confidently confirms it. She notes that people might think he is an ordinary student living in the academy dormitory. This cannot be allowed. The protagonist feels afraid of this thought. Maria insists that she is right, because Alana only recognized him by his hands. A frightened Kanata agrees with them, admitting that they are right. The main character wonders what to do in such a situation. But the girl assures him not to worry, because he can use her secret villa. Even her parents don't know anything about this place, so there won't be any problems. The guy asks Alana how it's even possible to have a villa that no one knows about. The girl assures him that no one will even notice its existence, even if they look directly at her. Kanana is surprised and asks how that's possible. Alana reminds the boy that her holy sorcery can drive people away. She explains that this magic simply makes others not notice what she has chosen. A man notices a huge castle but feels that there is something there, even though he doesn't care. That's how magic works. The protagonist realizes that the girl has cast this spell on the entire villa. The girl laughs and says that tomorrow she will change the barrier so that he can see it. Alana smiles and says she doesn't know how effective it will be. But if she combines her magic with his, he can transmit the signal safely and not worry about anyone trying to find out their location. Suddenly, Maria hugs her friend and enthusiastically calls her cool, and Alana immediately agrees with these words. The protagonist announces that if he can master this magic by tomorrow, he will be able to use it on his own. Both girls look at the guy in surprise, not believing their eyes. The girl suddenly admits that she forgot to mention one important detail. This magic is only transmitted between equals. She says she can't betray the church. The main character understands her. Even for Mr. Canada's sake, she wouldn't dare do it. The girls insisted on taking them with them. They wanted to be close by so that no one would reveal the hero's secret, and someone else needed to open the villa for him. The protagonist understood their logic and agreed to this offer. The protagonist smiles, thinking that he will definitely thank them later. After that, he turns and looks at the wall. The young man looks up and notices Mira, who has already climbed to the very top of the wall and is gesturing at him. At that moment he realizes she was only pretending to leave. Mira thinks that if necessary, they can hold back as long as they want, and she will back up her friends and take care of everything. At this moment, the protagonist realizes this girl actually fully justifies her nickname. People are scrolling through their phones thinking it's time to take a break from work. Finally, they've arrived. They wonder what excuse Mr. Haishin has come up with this time. At this moment, Kana wishes him luck. The girl with the horns smiles, clenches her fist, and confidently tells Mr. Haishin that she believes in him. The demons wondered, did he pose a danger to them? He was not like other people, and this frightened them. But to understand his true essence, it was enough just to listen to his stream of words. Finally, the clock strikes 6. Someone calls the protagonist by name. The girls standing in front of him announce that the right time has come. Kanata agrees with them and suggests they go ahead with the plan. Both girls support his decision. The protagonist picks something up from the ground and realizes that he too is feeling anxious. However, he realizes that this is what the new era of live streaming looks like. The guy puts on his helmet and mentally reminds himself that this is his first attempt in this world, so he just needs to have fun. Alana holds her phone on a selfie stick, and Maria stands next to her, smiling. It's almost dusk outside. Rikba says that whatever his excuses, this will be the last broadcast in which he simply shows his hands and his hoarse voice. He orders everyone to act immediately. Everyone agrees with his decision. The guy watches the broadcast. When everyone sees the main character's body on their phone screens, they freeze in amazement and can't take their eyes off the screens. The protagonist looks directly into the camera and addresses his audience. He wonders if they were expecting this. The man in the mask smiles, because he understands. This is how, at least for a short time, the legendary Haishin showed his face to the whole world. Everyone is holding their phones. The screens show Kesh and his gestures. Everyone understands his words and movements. A thought flashed through their minds. Is this even possible? The main character opens his arms wide. happily greets everyone and jokingly asks how they like his new look. He smiles and apologizes that he can't show his face yet. Everyone froze, their eyes fixed on the screen. But suddenly a scream erupts in the room. Mr. Haishin finally appears on the screen. Connie is suddenly overcome with joy when she hears Haishin talk about his desire to prove that he is innocent. The girl with the horns raises her fists and confidently puts her foot on the table. The guy explains with a smile that this is why he decided to do a special broadcast today. Rick Bow, sitting on the throne, was watching the broadcast intently. At this time, Geishan informed him that rumors had recently begun to spread in one of the countries, that he was organizing mass murders to ensure uninterrupted broadcasting. You can't just turn a blind eye to those who accuse others of crimes based on guesswork. Rickba laughs and asks if he's really trying to threaten him. Thinking about it, Haishin admits that he still feels uncomfortable. He asks loudly if those stupid haters heard him. Hearing this, Rickba is surprised. Haishin admits that thanks to Hateri, he now sleeps like a normal person, and, strangely enough, it annoys him. The two men turn away from Rickba and whisper that it is to his advantage. Suddenly, Rickba turns to them with an angry look. They apologize to him in fright. Haishin announces that today he will show everyone how his dreams work. But before that, he wants to introduce everyone to his assistant. He asks Alfana and Maria to hand him the camera. Commentators are writing in delight and asking to sort this out as soon as possible. Everyone is anxiously waiting for the truth to finally surface. They demand that the main character prove his innocence, but he calmly replies that there is no need to rush. The girl with the horns watches in annoyance as someone helps him, but unfortunately it's not her. Meanwhile, the guy shows Alfana and Maria on the broadcast, explaining that these two have come from afar specifically to support him. Maria greets everyone present and introduces herself. She is Maria Athanasius, the third princess of the kingdom of Logius. Alfana adds that Maria is actually better known as a saint. She says she's sure everyone is worried and confused right now, but they're still his loyal fans. They asked Haishin to join them, and he graciously agreed. Now everyone is talking about Maria and Alfana in the comments. Kaida holds the phone in her hands and suddenly realizes, if these two also know about Kanata, then they will become real rivals for her. Someone asks the boy, if he personally knows this assistant, then perhaps he himself lives in Logius. The boy suddenly became alarmed by this thought. The protagonist waves his hand at Alfani, mentally asking her to cast the spell. The girl snaps her fingers and thinks that in the name of the saint they must obey her. She orders everyone to pay attention only to Mr. Haishin, to his words and actions. Alfana said that she had already prepared everything. Maria looked at her carefully, thinking. The guy thanked Alfana and realized that now all that was left to do was hide all the comments in the archive, and everyone around him started to mutter that it really didn't matter where he lived. Rick feels like his head is foggy. His thoughts are jumbled, and he can't focus at all to figure out who he really is. People around him say that Geishin's words have stuck in his head, but in reality, finding this man is not that important to Rick. Suddenly, Rickba turns around and angrily shakes his fist at them, causing his men to immediately apologize. Haishin raises his finger and announces that it is time to move on to the most important thing. He turns to the saint, and the girl, without hesitation, places the ball on the table saying, "Here it is." The guy on the stream points to it and says that everyone will probably recognize it, but it's actually a ball that shows your mana level. The protagonist turns to Maria, and the girl responds by telling her what she is going to do next, holding her hand. The girl placed her hands on the spherical artifact and explained, "The rank depends on the color and brightness of the light." The sphere now shone golden. Such a shine means that her mana reserves correspond to the highest SSS rank. Geishin thanked the girl for the explanation. Now, he said, when everyone in the room knew the whole truth, they were probably wondering how much of it was actually masculine. The main character admits that he actually has as much of it as he wants. In other words, he can provide his husband with everything he needs to broadcast on his own, without needing anyone's help. Rickba was speechless when he saw the screen and couldn't believe his eyes. How is it possible that he has endless energy? The girl with the horn smiles at me, and confidently says that she already knew everything in advance. The rest of the people look at him in surprise, almost not believing their eyes. To prove that it is true, he declares that he will show everything immediately. The girl does not hide her dissatisfaction. She thinks this method is too simplistic. It is still dark outside the window. The day before. The main character tells Mira that he will now fill the ball with mana. In this way, he wants to prove that he has an infinite amount of it. Mira suspects that it is a trick, to which the guy just smiles and says, "You suspect correctly." He says that the presence of the two girls will help him in this situation. At least that's what everyone claims. Their appearance alone is enough to convince anyone. The girls are asking you to rely on them. The world on the ceiling is watching the main character intently, who asks everyone to take a closer look. He places his hand on the ball and says that nothing is happening. Suddenly, the main character places both hands on the ball, and bright rays of light begin to shoot out of it. Maria was surprised. The golden glow flashed for only a moment, and immediately changed to an eerie black light. Alana watches in surprise as the orb, after darkening slightly, regains its golden glow. Mira feels as if his infinite mana is about to burst out, trying to break through the magical shell. The commentators also do not hide their surprise at what is happening before their eyes. The protagonist sincerely hopes that the bullet will not break. He is still holding his hands next to it, when suddenly the bullet begins to tremble. Suddenly the ball rises into the air, and the main character wonders why it flew up. The girls are surprised to notice that a rainbow glow is pouring from it. For the first time in their lives, they see such a miracle. Suddenly the ball flies straight into the window, breaking it. It flies out into the street. The main character, shouting, orders it to turn back. He asks where it flew to. All three of them ran after the ball, and he asked the girls to help him. The girls agreed without hesitation and supported his idea. The main character was in a hurry to catch up with the ball, and because of this rush, he accidentally touched a stick with a smartphone which fell to the ground. The phone is lying on the floor. No one even notices it. But suddenly all three of them turn their heads to the window and freeze in shock. The main character wonders, why does it seem like the whole world is before his eyes? He just has to pick up his phone and turn on the camera, and it seems like he sees the whole world on a small screen. All the humans and demons, holding their breath, stared at their phone screens. Everyone was stunned by the unexpected turn of events. The thought was spinning in everyone's heads. Was it an accident? What even happened? Maybe they should have just gone to the window and seen for themselves. So the main character asks all the boys to look out the window. It seems simply incredible. Two girls are already peering out, looking for something interesting. The people standing in the street raised their heads. Surprise appeared on their faces. Now they understood why Mr. Gijin was so surprised. Everyone began to wonder what this was. Connie admits that it is both frightening and fleeting. A demonic girl suddenly teleports outside, and this surprises one boy so much that he even exclaims in surprise. She enthusiastically says, "How beautiful." Mira, watching all this, asks with curiosity what it is. Everyone raises their heads in astonishment to the sky, where a ball of mana hangs, shining so brightly that it seems to illuminate the entire world around it. Everyone watches this closely. The protagonist, smiling, says that it looks like a glow. It is extremely beautiful. Maria looks at him in disbelief. She looks up again and wonders if this sky they see is called the Shining. Suddenly the glow in the sky disappears. The ball flies rapidly downward and ends up in the hands of Alana, who examines it thoughtfully. The girl says that all the excess mana came out of the sphere and created this miracle. Alana said out loud what everyone was thinking. However, it was not limited to just one country. The light began to spread to other lands. The radiance became undeniable proof of the boundless power of Gaishin. However, he forgot one important detail. Everyone around him believes that God's grace has descended upon him. People wonder if Hake's singing is a message from heaven itself. In the world of Adorasia, there is no such thing. In short, he has pretty much ruined everything. Rick Bay is starting to realize that this guy has become completely strange. They won't be able to defeat him. Rickba loses his temper, insisting that this is a blatant lie. He knows for sure. He took mana from his slaves. His people have announced that they are not going to fight God. The demonic girl hugs Kanu right in the middle of the street, holds her hands and joyfully exclaims that it was all worth it. Fans decided that it was he who created such a magical night sky. Hishin stares at his phone in shock and can't believe it's really that serious. The girls around him laugh and assure him that they will forever remain Mr. Hishin's followers. The next day, people wonder if there will be a program today. Passers-by on the street look happy. Grandma wonders if they will hear it today. The girl asks her if she likes it. The people cannot wait for this event to begin. The king believes that they have witnessed a true legend. He is glad that he has lived so long and seen such a radiance. For him, it is like a real divine miracle. Someone asks if they are also wary, and hears confirmation in response. The creatures discuss among themselves that his infinite mana seems very interesting. They hope that he will visit their country at least once. The protagonist sits with his eyes closed and thinks, it's a great honor to become so popular. However, he realizes that there is a trap here. People around him say that Haishin shines like a real star, but he only dreams of being allowed to sleep a little during the break. Haishin is forced to travel every day, so he is chronically sleep-deprived. His weekdays go in a circle: the student dormitory, the capital, and Maria's mansion. The protagonist opens his eyes wide, listening attentively to the story of Gaishin's amazing divine miracle. One girl points to the phone and asks the guy if it's the same glow he was talking about. The guy confirms that it is. The main character looks at them in astonishment and doesn't understand why they associate it with him. But the main character realizes that in his previous life he existed before his era. Mira and the tree admit that they are already tired of traveling. What other divine miracle is this? What do they mean? Kanata looks at Maria and Alfana, noticing that both are tired, but not in body, but in soul. Several people gather around Alfana and begin to question her about Mr. Gazian, who he is and what they talked about. Everyone is anxious to hear the details of this conversation. A crowd of curious people gathers around Maria, wanting to learn all the details of what's going on behind the scenes. But the girl politely asks to wait and promises to tell her later, because now she has to go on business. The main character realizes that he owes a lot to the girls, and now he has to figure out how to thank them. At this moment, the teacher claps his hands, announcing the beginning of the lesson. On the way home, the main character thinks about how he will return, lie down in his bed and get a good night's sleep. He yawns, relaxed, but suddenly he hears someone's words. Someone asks who he thinks he is. He watches two boys and two girls argue with each other. The boys insist that Haishin is an ordinary person, while the girls respond that the boys are just jealous. The protagonist realizes that it was precisely because of such feelings and thoughts that the spoiled aristocrat started all this. Maria said that after the broadcast, the royal knights tracked down Rikpa, found his house, and forced him to confess to his crimes on the spot before he was arrested. Either he was broken by the consequences of his actions, or perhaps he himself confessed his sins. But before going to prison, he decided to distribute his wealth to his servants. Rikpa, bowing low, says that he brings this as his sincere apology to everyone, and assures that he will no longer need these treasures in prison. Perhaps something happened earlier, but nothing is known about it. The demonic girl holds the boy by the head, tells him that he apologized, as she asked, praises him for it. All this happened an hour before nightfall. His defenses were weak, not nearly as strong as his shins. The demoness tells him that her subordinates are true masters of their craft, so finding a bug like him was no problem for them. When one of the women in the argument asks the other what's wrong with her hair, saying it should be cut, a guy walks by. He thinks that situations like this could be avoided if people were more careful with their words and didn't react too sharply during arguments. He understands that in the end it's all his fault. He needs to be more careful in his actions. There's a girl standing in front of him. Alfana wishes the protagonist a good day and notices that he looks very tired. The protagonist looked at her and noticed that she seemed to be feeling it too. Then he added that since they were alone, he suspected she was using her magic. The girl notices that the boy is sighing heavily. She wonders if he is really thinking about something. The boy hesitates, but still wants to say something. A crying girl approaches the main character, grabs his shoulder, and asks if he's really going to end the broadcast. The protagonist quickly shakes his head in denial, denying what he heard. And suddenly he notices the girl is standing too close again. He happily admits that he has received a lot of unwanted attention, but he has vowed to continue his broadcasts as he always has. He will make sure that both he and his listeners enjoy the broadcasts, while keeping his true identity a secret. Alfana laughed and said with relief that she and Maria were already starting to worry. The protagonist said goodbye, promising to see each other again, and thanked her for her support. At the same time, he was a little embarrassed by the strange distance that always existed between them. The main character thinks that these two are too good to be friends with a simpleton like him. But the girl sincerely says that from now on she will support him even more. The main character enters his room and immediately says that he's back, and then looks thoughtfully at the bed and realizes that there are no worlds here. Haishin wonders where she went. But suddenly, completely unexpectedly, she appears right under his feet and asks how she can be of any use. The main character jumps onto the bed in fright, his heart pounding, and Mira looks at him in surprise. The guy insists that she go home already. He jokingly asks the girl if she has become his eternal pursuer. The girl replies that she just wanted to protect him. The guy apologizes and asks how she's doing at work. The girl remembers that she forgot to say something. Raven is now leaving the service and starting a new life. The protagonist notices that the girl got a new uniform from nowhere. Mira tells the main character with a smile that she is sure. Her dad is looking down on her with pride from heaven. The guy asks if she is unemployed now and asks her not to change the conversation. But suddenly something unexpectedly strikes the main character. He imagines how commentators will write that the crow's disappearance is Haitian's merit, and thinks that if that happens, he will be extremely unpleasant. The guy grabs the girl by the hand and tries to take her home, insisting that she come back and just become his bodyguard or something like that. But the girl firmly refuses. The car stops at a beautiful gate with drivers standing next to it. Maria gets out of the car and heads towards the gate. She walks home with a strange gait, thinking about finally getting back from work. Her heart is filled with the desire to see Kanadada. The girl enters the room and is surprised to notice the main character. And suddenly, as if forgetting everything around her, she rushes to him and loudly shouts his name. She watches in surprise as the main character pushes Mira away and asks who she is. The guy calls her a crazy tramp, and Mira replies that this is slander and from today on she will protect Mr. Kanaga. The girl freezes in surprise and asks about the guard. The protagonist replies with a slight smile that it's a lie, and they both know it perfectly well. Alfina watches everything and thinks, if Haitian likes small guards, then she will be the best option for him. A girl stands in front of the gate, noting with displeasure that it's very noisy here. She asks if Kanata is helping someone again. She giggles softly, imagining how surprised Kanata would be to learn that she took the day off and came to visit him. The girl walking behind her notes in her mind that the saint and priestess seem to be studying at this very school. She decides it is time to pay them a visit. The two girls met each other's gaze, and one of them timidly asked if they knew each other. From now on, the main focus will be on the main character again. Alfina tells Mira that she and Marie have become his bodyguards. Mira, surprised and a little dissatisfied, asks what she is talking about. Despite all this, Haitian does not stop and confidently moves forward. The main character feels that he is finally ready to start filming his own vlogs. Now many new opportunities open up before him. The guy holds his head, realizing that he could get even cooler. He tries to escape reality. Meanwhile, Mira and her friends are arguing behind him. The protagonist stands, turning away from the others, and covers his ears with his hands. For him, reincarnation is not just words. The one who guides Kanata blesses her future. The girl from heaven watches him joyfully and smiles. A halo shines above her head, and wings have spread behind her back. The girl sits on a chair watching the boy through the clouds. She coughs and says that's enough. She smiles and says that she has been watching him all this time. He seems to be really having fun. It is from this moment that the goddess begins her story. The girl had no idea that he would use the mana she had given him in this way. He was indeed a very interesting guy. Now she was looking forward to today's stream. Kanao walks past the girls who are watching him intently, while he mentally admits how tired he is today. He just wants to go home and get ready for the evening. Suddenly, all the girls at the same time joyfully address the main character by name. After that, all the girls suddenly rush at our calm, unsuspecting hero. A large cross is visible on the building. The protagonist points his finger at himself and asks if he will receive any support. Alphanik confidently confirms his words and turns to the guy, wondering what he thinks about it. And Maria adds that they were actually waiting for his opinion. The protagonist thinks and remembers that in his homeworld there were some sponsors or paid subscribers. Alfana again recalls the mysterious man's ball, and says that a week has passed since that event. But the public's enthusiasm still hasn't subsided. Even the artists who work for the royal family quarrel and compete with each other to be the first to paint a portrait of Hai Shin. Maria adds that a painting is, of course, good. But it's even better when there's something that everyone wants to touch to feel it closer. She is sure that such a thing will definitely be bought, and wonders what Kanata will say. The protagonist assumes that she means some kind of souvenir, of course, but it seems to him that they are in too much of a hurry. The girls look at him with strange expressions on their faces. He understands that it is just an ordinary souvenir, but for some reason it all makes him suspicious. The main character asks the girls how he can take up so much of their time, because each of them has their own affairs and responsibilities. Maria assures them that this information will not be disclosed and will not interfere with their work in any way. Alfana asks Mr. Canada to trust them. The main character recalls how he was often underestimated and insulted at the academy, so the care he receives now seems unusual to him. The online world is completely different, not the same as in real life. He even wonders if he should marry those who care about him so much, but in the end he smiles jokingly at such a thought. At that moment, Kanata's life hung in the balance because he couldn't say it out loud. Otherwise, everything could end very badly. But most likely, their passion had already reached its peak, and perhaps he would feel something that was hard to imagine. The girls rushed towards him, no longer able to stop. Kanata says that they need to think carefully about what kind of merch to create. The girls immediately agree with his idea. Suddenly, everyone's eyes stop at the statues of a girl with wings who has raised her hand up. Everyone looks at them in surprise. Alfana said that this morning a strange thing appeared on the statue of the goddess. It now sports a t-shirt with a picture of Haitian in a mask. The main character wondered who had gone to such lengths and had the imagination to dress her in such a thing. Alfana replied that the culprit had not yet been found. Maria first points to the t-shirt and says she wants the same one, but a moment later turns away and says it's disgusting. Alfana claims that if the clothes depict a Geishan, then there is nothing sacrilegious about it. She believes so. The protagonist is surprised and asks if the church is still in its right mind. Several girls stand behind a tree and watch them, quietly asking each other, "Is this her classmate?" Princess Mary is also next to them. Someone suggests, "Maybe this is the new monk." Everyone turns their gaze to Maria, who suggests that perhaps the goddess herself gave these clothes. In other words, it was a sign from above. She asks if the others think so too. Alfana suddenly starts to feel dizzy. The guy replies in surprise that this can't be happening. Maria laughs and says it's just a joke. In the sky, the goddess admires the maid's t-shirts and is pleased that they turned out so well. The girl next to her wonders, if she sewed them again, then why did she make so many? The girls say that even though it's only noon outside, we need to finish everything today. The main character agrees with them. Maria tells that she and Alfana have a small business. The main character immediately guesses and asks if it is related to politics. It is clear that both of them are having a hard time right now. Without waiting for an answer, he turns and leaves, saying goodbye to the girls. One of the girls says that this is not the case at all, but Alfana smiles slyly, promising that he will soon understand everything himself. The guy looks around and realizes that he doesn't come here often, so everything seems unfamiliar and new to him. The street is quite lively. There are a lot of people. He wonders what kind of store is here. Suddenly, Mira appears next to him. She's enjoying some sweets and tells him that a new store has opened nearby. It opened only yesterday. She asks if he wants to go there with her. The main character shudders in fear, thinking that she has just appeared out of nowhere again. Mira looks at the guy in disbelief. He addresses the entire world, asking it to hear him. Then he asks the girl how long she will stay here, and she opens her mouth wide, preparing to answer. He remembers her lying next to him on the bed, doing asana. Then he asks the girl why she hasn't moved out of here and found a better place for herself. The girl suddenly burst into tears and clung tightly to the boy's leg, pleading that this couldn't be. She asked the main character why she was treating him this way. What was her fault, and what had she done wrong? The main character grumbles, saying that he is lucky to have such a fan. The people nearby glance in their direction and whisper, "Are the brother and sister fighting in front of them?" The guy put his hands on her shoulders and said that he knew she was hiding her true nature. He was sincerely grateful to her for this, because it was thanks to her help that he was able to cope with the recent situation. He picks her up and asks if she's had enough of this persecution. The protagonist resolutely throws the girl into the nearest box. The girl gets ears and a tail. She confidently says that she will find a home in the capital. Returning to her homeland is not even considered. Suddenly, Mira burst into tears and stretched out her arms, asking to be picked up. The protagonist gathers his courage and reminds himself that he must be strong for her sake, because his mother always told him not to pick up stray dogs on the street. The boy abruptly breaks into a run, trying to escape from everything that has been weighing him down. With thoughts running through his head, he tries to switch gears and think about what awaits him next. And Mira follows him with her gaze, watching him walk away. The girl begins to cry again, admitting that she heard his favorite phrase. She remembers how he once quietly asked, "What awaits us now?" Canada stares intently at the building, trying to figure out what it is. The two boys notice something flowing inside the box. It looks like some kind of liquid. The protagonist finally realizes what kind of building is in front of him. It's the Venetti house. He wonders if Kana works there. Mira looks around and wonders why, even though it's still daylight outside. So many people are already heading in that direction. A girl approaches her and tells her that most of these people are adventurers who have just returned from the dungeon, or travelers who have already completed their work for the day. Suddenly, the main character realizes with surprise that it is Kana standing in front of her. Smiling, she turns to Kana and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Canada looks thoughtfully at Mira, realizing that she met her at the academy 6 days ago. The main character stands awkwardly between two girls, but unexpectedly for himself, he sees them smiling, shaking hands, and starting to get to know each other. Mira says she understands, and Kana agrees. The protagonist watches them thoughtfully, trying to understand what is hidden in their words. All three of them are now sitting together at the table. Canada is impressed. The building is even better from the inside than he imagined. Once, as an ordinary student in a past life, he could not even dream of getting here. Meanwhile, Mira wonders how much money was invested in this place. The cook enters the room with food. Kana smiles happily, as she was just about to have lunch. She immediately offers to join her. Mira and Kana look at the dishes in surprise, already holding forks and knives in their hands, not believing in such a pleasant coincidence. The main character wishes the girl something delicious and wonders how often she allows herself such a luxurious meal. He finds it incredible. Such expenses are definitely beyond the reach of a poor student. Can such a charming girl really afford something like this? There are several empty plates on the table. The protagonist asks Kana who she usually has dinner with. The girl replies that she mostly spends time at the table with her friends. Suddenly, she asks the protagonist if he is familiar with Princess Mary and Saint Alphana. The protagonist answers in the affirmative, confused. The girl smiles slyly and tells them that she recently had lunch with them. The protagonist looks at her in surprise, while Mirage calmly finishes his meal. It's cloudy outside. The main character asks Kans when they met. The girl thinks about it and answers. About 6 days have passed. She recalls how 2 of them stood with the girls one night and said they liked it there, and a friend suggested they have some fun. Kana notes that after the incident with the aristocrat, some of the girls started coming to their place, and thanks to that, they managed to establish a relationship with the royal family. The girl remembers how Maria greeted her with surprise and asked if she was pregnant. Since they had a common pet, they decided to have dinner together. Kana became curious and asked the girl if she knew his real identity. That same day they had a lively discussion about this issue, completely immersed in the conversation. The protagonist looks at Kana in surprise and takes a sip of his drink. They say they discussed forming a union of Haitian supporters. They managed to agree on this idea. The protagonist was so surprised that he spilled the drink he was drinking. Mira carefully watches his reaction. Kana puts her hand to her cheek and announces that they are having a secret meeting. And so far she is the third in this group. In other words, she is number 3 for him. The main character suddenly coughs, and Canada asks anxiously if he's okay. In response, the guy smiles, assuring him that everything is fine. It's just that the water got a little bit in the wrong place. Kanata remembers Maria and Alphana talking about wanting to make souvenirs. But this is the first she's heard about starting a fan club. They hadn't mentioned it before. Suddenly, the guy starts waving his arms and asks the girl if that means she's listening to High Shake too. The girl responds to the protagonist with agreement and extends her hand to him, confessing that it was his ethers that saved her. So she expresses her gratitude to Mr. Haishin and says that she respects him more than anything in the world. The boy turns away and says that he understands everything. Mira remembers that she slept that day and didn't have time to go to the church. She remembers how Kanata saw her while she was sleeping. Now Mira finally understands what happened then. Mira calmly chews her food, her thoughts already somewhere far away. She remembers the Supporters Association and wonders how she could have missed it. The girl apologizes and says she needs to go to the restroom for a moment. The protagonist agrees, and at that moment Kana stands up and addresses the guy by name. The girl hugs the guy and says that since he's come this far, he should try something more interesting. The boy quickly turns back, wondering how it happened so suddenly. The girl asks if she should just wait. Kanata replies that maybe she's joking. The girl laughs and agrees. It was already getting dark outside. Kana said with a smile that even the short meeting had given her a lot of joy. She invited them to visit again sometime, and both of them gratefully agreed, thanking her for the wonderful dinner. The guy understands that now is not the time to think too much. First he needs to talk to Alphana and Maria. He looks away and suddenly notices there is no light around. He believes that the girl has finally set out to look for a new home. The protagonist feels real relief and joy about this. The guy is walking down the street and thinking thoughtfully. He wasn't going to hold anything back today, so now he doesn't know what to do next. Alphana stands in the middle of the church and extends her hand forward. After wishing the ladies good evening, she introduces herself as the founder of the Association of Mr. Haishin's Supporters. She explains to the girls that their main goal is to create an environment in which Mr. Haishin can broadcast in peace and safety. That is what their organization exists for. Maria asks if it sounds too formal. Kana replies that this is the style of speaking she thinks is ideal. The girl laughs and thinks. At first, only those who are familiar with the situation will join them. But later they will remove the restrictions on participation and everyone will be able to join. Suddenly she notices something black above and, without hesitation, creates a strange liquid on her fingertips. Deciding that these are unwanted guests, the girl gives the liquid a sharp shape and sharply throws it in their direction. The girl understands. Although these people do not give the impression of being strong, they still manage to overcome her barrier. This means that they are not ordinary people standing before her. 2 silhouettes appear from the black portal. 2 girls repel Alphana's projectile. One of them, surprised, asks if this is some kind of entrance test. They want to see if she has enough strength to defend it. Meanwhile, 3 girls watch this in amazement. The demon and the girl with the mirror appear. She apologizes and honestly admits that she also wants to join them. The girl was once a hired killer, and the demon informs her that she also wants to be part of the team. Mira looks at the demon girl and wonders if she came here alone. At that moment, the demon looks at the girl carefully, as if pondering something important. Maria points her finger at the girls and tells everyone that those 2 were also near the academy at that moment. Kana turns to Alfana and remarks that it seems like the girls are on their side. Alfana bows her head, intertwines her fingers, and agrees to cooperate for the sake of their shared idol. All the girls simultaneously extended their hands and placed their fingers in the same place as Alfan, explaining with a smile, "This is Mr. Haishin's sign." The goddess watches from above and laughs. She says that the further events unfold, the more interesting they become. She wonders what it could mean if this is the second arch. The goddess announces that Mr. Haishin must become more and more famous. That is the whole point of the story. The girl next to her looks at the goddess in surprise, wondering how much life among humans has affected her clothing and sense of humor. The main character doesn't even suspect that there are even more fans in the fan club. While the guy relaxes in the sauna and enjoys true bliss, he becomes curious about what the others are doing now. Kana asks if he likes beautiful girls like Princess Marie and Saint Alphonse. The guy carefully reads all the comments. The mirror writes that it is better to be strong than beautiful, and advises him to choose a girl who can protect him. The demon adds that she is also strong, although she devotes time to her beauty. This surprises the guy. He did not expect such an answer. Without wasting a moment, he immediately responded. The main character was sitting at the computer and wondered, does he like girls like that? Probably, yes. When such a beauty is around, any guy will feel happy. Kanaga notices that the guys around him also say that they don't have a girlfriend. The main character can't hold back tears of joy, because he's in the same situation. At such moments, it's so important to stick together with those who understand you. Standing near a stone shelter, he hears voices from 2 phones. Someone jokingly says that a single person's best friends are other single people. Nearby, a girl asks her friend if she heard these words, and she nods, confirming that she has. The girl puts her hands together and starts screaming. She shouts happily that he has confessed his love for her, but the main character notices the girls talking among themselves that Alfana and Maria were sick and stayed home with a fever, so they didn't come. One of the girls decided not to stay put and suggested they train together in the fresh air. The guy understands that it will be a bit boring now, but he still can't visit them. It's kind of strange, because a common cold can be cured here with magic. The man announces that they have one-on-one fights today, and the boys are surprised to ask if he really means it. I can't describe the clothes in detail. The man says they were given special clothes that protect against magical damage. When they are attacked and the threat becomes deadly, a protective device will be activated. The badge on their chest will break, and if it is destroyed, the clothing will take the full brunt of the impact. Their body will remain unharmed. Canada understood. The one who manages to destroy the opponent's badge will win. The man asks who will risk trying their hand first. One guy grabbed the other guy by the head and said they just wanted to be first. Haitian watches them closely, realizing that this clown is on fire again. He turns to the boy and asks if he will refuse to obey him. The villain suddenly delivers a magical blow, directing it at the second, who screamed in fear and stared at the enemy. The badge on the boy's chest cracks and he falls to the ground. The teacher stops everyone and says that's enough. The guy looks down in disappointment and then walks towards the crowd of people. At this time, the other one rejoices, declaring that the opponent is too weak. Canada looks at the defeated guy and realizes, this is what happens when you force someone to fight who is not yet ready, neither morally nor mentally. The defeated guy points his finger at the rope and says that now it's his turn. He waves his finger lightly, ordering the commoner to come closer, and the protagonist, nodding his head, agrees. He took advantage of the moment when Alfana was not in class. The people around him shout that he killed him and humiliated the commoner. The teacher asks everyone to calm down because this is just a training session. The man looks at the boys carefully and asks them to ignore the students, demanding that they begin. The boy with a crazy smile immediately begins to perform magic. The guy shouts that it's flames. He releases a stream of fire directly at the main character, who stands calmly and doesn't even take his hands off his head. The attack suddenly disappears. The hero cannot just stand there in silence. He frantically ponders why the attack has vanished into thin air. Suddenly, he exclaims that he has just used a deadly technique. Meanwhile, the teacher ponders. It was definitely not protective equipment or a feature of the clothing. The teacher initially thought that the protagonist had used a layer of magical energy, but quickly dismissed this idea. In fact, he had created a real wall, and it was then that the mentor realized that he had a real talent in front of him. The protagonist pondered his new defense, which he had developed using knowledge from his past life. Although it was the first time he had used it, he felt only a little uneasy, but not particularly worried. The guy remembers the pages of the manga and wonders to himself, who would have thought that memories of what he read would come in handy in another world? He gratefully mentally thanks Kadokawa for endlessly creating fantastic stories. The protagonist turns to the guy across from him, saying that it's his turn now, and asks if he's ready. The guy just smiles and conjures up flames in his hand. The young man was surprised, but in a moment the flame was right next to his face. He jumped aside in surprise, and his badge burned. Turning to everyone, the boy smiled. The young man lay naked, wondering why his things had burned. The teacher praised the boy for his perfect control of his strength. It was truly impressive. No wonder he was considered the most promising. Canada thanked him. The teacher says that the power of the aristocrats has lasted for many years. It's unpleasant, but words won't change anything here. However, the teacher clearly warns he will never let anyone cross the line. People just talk about how common people sometimes get lucky purely by chance. Kanata asks the teacher not to worry. The boy adds that not all the students are hostile. He has friends at this school. Although there are only 2 of them, they are a real princess and a holiday. The students say goodbye to each other after class. In class, a boy wonders if he should have dinner a little earlier today. Suddenly, someone speaks rudely to Kanabi. In front of him stands the boy he defeated in a duel. The protagonist immediately recognizes him and notes with relief that he is fortunately wearing a change of clothes. The boy invited Kanata to talk. The main character pretended to be scared. When the boy reached out his hand to him, someone nearby called out to him to stop. One of the friends asked, "What will happen if the saint finds out about this?" The girl nodded and said that it was true. After all, today he had already lost his dignity. The guy could not stand it, hit his friend on the shoulder and sharply told him to be quiet. The young man tries to justify himself, saying that he is simply not in shape today. He asks in surprise why he has to prove anything to them at all. The girls, not holding back, call him a coward. The protagonist is happy and silently thanks them for trying to protect him. Canada thought that he would let them continue arguing while he quietly returned home. But the boy noticed this, swung his fist, and asked where he was going. The guy is about to swing his fist at the protagonist, but suddenly freezes in place. The protagonist looks at him in surprise, then carefully touches his fist with his finger. The protagonist looks around in confusion, trying to understand what is happening. Everyone in the class is standing still. He wonders why he is the only one who can move. Canada looks out the window and notices a motionless bird. It seems to him that the whole world has stopped, and he is the only one who keeps moving. The young man takes a step back and accidentally bumps his back into the goddess, who sternly calls him impudent. The goddess turns sharply to Kanata and scornfully declares that he is nothing compared to her. How dare he touch her wings? She raises a finger and remarks with a smile that a normal person wouldn't bow like that. Her wings reflect the faces of all of Hyoshin's supporters. The protagonist turns around, sensing a familiar voice. He notices the goddess and, surprised, asks what she is doing here. The main character notices that the goddess is wearing a t-shirt with his image in a mask. He points his finger and wonders why her t-shirt has some kind of Ramaji written on it. "I am Gaishin." The goddess introduces herself and says that before they can rejoice in their meeting, there is one thing they need to do. The goddess looks intently at the boy who tried to beat Kanata through her fingers and announces, "This man has done something unforgivable, so he will be banned." She smiles and says that this is how they deal with those who hate them. And this is just the beginning. She crunches her fingers, and suddenly, to the protagonist's surprise, blood shoots from her fingers.